Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to TIDE 2022. We'll give it a minute or two before we start with the formal event, because it'll just give people time to join in, especially the participants. Okay. Jatin sir, I'd like to start now. Good afternoon, everyone. A very warm and hearty welcome to TIDE 2022. My name is Arjun Mahajan, your host and moderator for this 3-day knowledge sharing extravaganza. Transforming India Diagnostic Event, or TIDE, as we generally refer to it, the flagship event that focuses on the diagnostic segment within the healthcare industry. Can I request also please mute your phone? I think there's some disturbance coming in. Yeah, thank you so much. Much appreciated. So TIDE aims to keep the ecosystem attuned to the latest developments in the field of healthcare and diagnostics in particular. This is its 3rd edition. The previous 2 editions happened in the middle of the pandemic, and we focused on healthcare solutions. This time around, I guess the ambit has been widened to focus on far bigger industry issues as well. I would like to first extend a heartfelt thanks to our partners for this digital conclave, our knowledge partners MELAP, media partners Microbios India, and Medgate today. Over the next 3 days, we have a lineup of eclectic experts who will dwell on various facets of the diagnostic industry. These subject matter experts will touch upon a wide variety of subjects, be it precision medicine, evolution of regulations, quality compliance, to the nurturing of healthcare startups. As we start the program, it gives me great pleasure to introduce Mr. Jatin Mahajan, the patron and mentor of the TIDE platform. He is the mind behind this phenomenal idea. A genius who wears many caps, one among them being the managing director of J.Mitra and Company Private Limited, global leaders in IVD segment. Without further ado, Mr. Mahajan, over to you for your thoughts and views, sir.
Thank you, Arjunji, for your kind words. And good afternoon, everyone. A very warm and a hearty welcome to the 3rd edition of TIDE 2022. And I would now explain what TIDE stands for. TIDE basically means Transforming India Diagnostics Event. And the main objective of TIDE is basically to ensure that the acceleration of the transformation in the diagnostic space happen through mutual discussion and knowledge sharing on platforms like this. The second objective of TIDE is to catalyze the impactful changes in the Indian diagnostic space. And it also involves all stakeholders, be it people from the R&D side, people from the hospital side, people from the manufacturing side, and also it includes all the technology spaces, be it IVD, be it point of care testing, be it CLIA, be it molecular. The third important objective of TIDE is that it focuses on the critical developments. For example, on the technology aspect. So if there is any changes in technology, we talk about it here on this platform. If there is some emerging, trending aspect in any space of diagnostics, we talk about over here. If there is any policy matter, we talk about it here. If there is any regulatory aspect that we need to talk about, we will talk about it here on this platform. Or if there's any challenge, or if there's any stuck, or what we say as roadblocks, that also we discuss it over here. The mission of TIDE is to create awareness among all the stakeholders so that awareness can be created, and so that informed decisions can be generated and at the same time made. Well, we have all seen during the pandemic times, we have personally experienced the hardships, and we have seen what potent weapon the diagnostics plays. So what I would say is that diagnostic industry, which was at the background, came to the forefront during the pandemic times. What we have seen is that, and what we are aware of also, is the fact that 70% of the clinician decisions or the therapeutic interventions happen because of these diagnostic tests. So two vibrant sectors which will always be looked upon in times to come. One is healthcare and the other one is diagnostics, because people have realized the value of well-being and how important diagnostic plays in terms of prevention and prediction of diseases, so that it can benefit the humanity as a whole. Well, friends, I'll also talk about, the genesis or how TIDE was formulated. Well, it was a couple of years back, I was invited to a business event where I happened to meet a couple of industry leaders, and we happened to talk. And then one of the thoughts which emerged from those discussions was there was no platform which was available to any one of them which will enhance their knowledge. So that thought was at the back of my mind, and what actually triggered was this quote by Mahatma Gandhi, which says, "Be the change you want to see in the world." And actually that was the trigger, and that's how TIDE was actually formed. That's how it was created, so that at one platform we can actually we can curate all the challenging issues, the opportunities, and how the industry is going to shape up in the coming times. So I would also take this opportunity to thank the industry luminaries like Dr. Ravi Gaur, Dr. Neeraj Jain, Mr. Raj, Sehgal, and our special invitee, Mr. Rajiv Nath, for helping us fulfill our vision. Well, in this edition of TIDE 2022, we have lined up very good speakers. These are star speakers who are subject matter experts in their respective fields, in their respective areas, who will be very happy to share their rich information, knowledge, so that each one of us benefits from this knowledge which they'll be sharing on this platform. So without any further delay, I will request Arjunji to take the program forward. And before I conclude, I would like to thank my audience and all my partners for joining in and for investing their time in this knowledge and enhancement platform. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. Thank you very much. 1 second. Yeah. That was quite insightful. Now, as everyone is aware, before we go forward, can I just request a few people to mute their phones? It would really be nice and helpful. Thank you. Well, as you're all aware, TIDE is a technical conclave, and we have a scientific advisory board to guide us on the various aspects, whether it be speakers, whether it be topics, etc. Dr. Neeraj Jain is a member of the advisory board. He is a president of course director at MELAP, that is the Medical Education and Learning Point. He's also a secretary for Association of Practicing Pathologists and member of the Governing Council of Association of Indian Laboratories. Mr. Raj Sehgal, also a member of our advisory board. He is the Chief Growth Officer at Genestrings Laboratories. Together, Dr. Jain and Mr. Sehgal, as members of the advisory board, have played a very important and valuable role in putting together this edition of the conclave. Let me pass on the baton to them for the inaugural note. Over to you, Dr. Jain, Mr. Sehgal.
Good afternoon, everyone. Transforming Indian diagnostics, I can say, with excellence. Now, this is the third edition of TIDE. Previous two editions were also through online mode because of the COVID-19 situation, but now we are coming out of this COVID-19 situation, although we are out physically, but mentally, still we are somehow associated with this COVID-19. And probably next year we will have hybrid mode. Am I right, Mr. Jatin? Online as well as on-site, so that we will be able to meet each other. During this COVID-19 time, I saw Rajiv Nathji many times, Dr. Sanjeev Gupta many times, but through screen. I would like to meet them in person also. This is very good initiative because what is required? One thing is we have to keep ourselves updated with the technology. What are the latest technology available? Diagnostic companies, they are coming with new technology. Now we have to learn about this technology. When we are learning, we have to learn such a manner we are able to implement this technology in our day-to-day activity. And we are also able to convince our clinician. See, this is the 4th generation test available. This is the 5th generation test available. What are the advantages? What were the shortcomings of the previous generation? And in this, J.Mitra is playing a very important role and really very commendable role. So my best wishes are with TIDE, and my best wishes are with all of you for the success of this TIDE 2022. And probably this is 3rd. In the time to come, we will have 5th, then 10th, then 15th, then 20th also. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Jain. Over to you, Mr. Sehgal.
Thank you, Adil. Thank you, Mr. Mahajan, for this opportunity. It was a really enriching experience to architect this important event as a team. And so in my opening remarks, I can slice this transformation into three parts. The first is the most important, which is patient side. The second is on the technology side, and the third is on the business side. So what transformation is actually impacting on these three sides, I'll just describe a bit. For the patient side, following has changed. They are getting early diagnosis, accurate diagnosis, personalized diagnostics, and finally the empowerment of the patient. When I say early diagnostic, it helps in improving the quality and effectiveness of care. For example, if it is a cancer, spotting the disease early improves the chances of survival and the better patient outcomes. The second one is accurate diagnosis, meaning with new technologies, accuracy of diagnostics results is improving day by day. Accuracy is the basis for any treatment the patient may receive, from medicines to surgery. The third one is personalized diagnostics. Diagnostics is getting more personalized. Now, genetic or genomic tests are enabling the doctors to know the patient's genetic composition, and they can tailor strategies for patient-specific disease detection, treatment, or prevention. The fourth and the last one for the patient is empowerment. So, because the information is coming to the patients more than ever, it is enabling them to make choices about disease prevention or the treatment options. The second slice of transformation is technology. The technology is evolving quite fast and resulting in digitalization, personalization, prevention, new methods of doing tests, better sensitivity and more accuracy, etc. I would mention about artificial intelligence, as it is playing a much stronger role now, that helps to read the slides, lets you know what markers are expressed and which markers show potential disease. It also helps in making the treatment decisions. I would not talk much about technology, as that is well covered by the eminent speakers in the subsequent sessions. Third one is transformations impact on the business side. On the business side, we are witnessing changes like increased investor interest in this domain. Corporate labs are coming up more than ever. Allied businesses like e-pharmacies, pharma manufacturing companies, hospitals, they all are getting into the business more than ever. I think they're finding a cross-selling opportunity with the same target audience. Further, the other triggers for this increased interest are digital adoption, reasonable margins, return of equity, etc. The market is witnessing the shift from unorganized to organized, but still the headroom for growth remains intact. The adoption of POC diagnostics, point of care diagnostics, would continue along with the continued prevalence of hub and spoke model in diagnostics. Specialized testing and complex tests would be the differentiators. By the way, some of these early launches provide better margins also. Strong logistics and IT systems would continue to bring tailwinds along with e-commerce players and aggregators. So there is a structural change in the industry. Patients are preferring home collections more than ever. Share of preventive healthcare in the business is increasing, which was less than 10% contribution earlier. So these all are the transformationing things which are happening in diagnostics. And with these opening thoughts, I would now hand over to Mr. Arjun for progressing the session ahead. Thank you very much and all the best to all the speakers.
Dr. Jain, Mr. Sehgal, thank you both very much. I believe you've pointed out one thing which everybody knows, everybody accepts, but nobody talks about. And that is, and I believe we are at the cusp of it. We are at the cusp of a new paradigm. Paradigms are shifting, and the milestones keep changing. But I believe that as of now, medical diagnostics post the COVID pandemic has come into a life of its own, right? And of course, with that, the allied how do you call it, the allied sectors that come along with it. We're all moving with the growth trajectory. And truth be told, I'm very impressed when, I was reading out your introduction. I said, Chief Growth Officer. That is something very new, interesting. We all want growth, but very few put the title to it.
Correct.
Thank you all very much for the keynote address. Now, before we go forward, it gives me great pleasure to introduce the next gentleman. And this is one gentleman who I have not met in person, but he has been the face of many an event, many an industry association, right? He's one of the icons of diagnostic medtech industry, and one of the most vociferous voices that I have heard on all relevant platforms. And Jatinji would attest to the fact when I say that he has done a lot for catalyzing a conducive policy environment. He needs no elaborate introduction. Ladies and gentlemen, Dr. Rajiv Nath, Mr. Rajiv Nath, Chairman, HMD, and Forum Coordinator for IMED. We look forward to sharing his experiences and vision for the diagnostic industry as part of this very special address. Sir, over to you.
Thank you, Mr. Mahajan, for this nice introduction. Thank you, Mr. Jatin Mahajan and fellow panelists for coming forward for organizing this event to motivate all the stakeholders in the diagnostic related field to come forward and make this as an annual event to focus upon the developments and technologies and the growth of the industry and the ecosystem, both from the manufacturing side as well as from the testing and delivery side. I've been asked by Jatinji to speak about my journey in the area of medical devices as MD of HMD, as well as my role as the forum coordinator for IMED. So I will speak briefly about this, and later on, if anybody has any queries or any questions, I'm available to answer that. So I'm 60 years old. I'm the lucky son born with a silver syringe in my mouth. My father started the business. He was a pharmacist. He started his pharmacy initially in Lahore. And then when Pakistan and India were born, he had escaped in a truck with some communist friends to India and put up Nath Brothers Chemists in Delhi Cant initially, and then Connaught Place later on. And from those humble roots, he realized that even basic things like syringes, needles are not available to doctors. And he reached out to various manufacturers to make these syringes in Japan, in Italy, in Germany, seeking collaboration, but nobody would even respond to his letters. But he was fortunate that one time a Japanese delegation that was visiting one of India's first exhibitions in Delhi, he reached out to them through his clients in the shop. And he posed the query to them that what is the point of bringing these delegations if you will not have any collaborations with Indian companies? And if India cannot make basic medical devices. And with that, he was put across to some companies in Japan. And he reached out to Japan with money borrowed from his friends. He didn't have money to buy the plane ticket also. But he went across to Japan purely on an entrepreneurial spirit and zeal, sought out the collaboration, convinced the Japanese company, and brought the Japanese technology to India. That time, Japan was also struggling like, I would say, the early days of China and India. It was not really at the epitome of quality, but yes, it was affordable technology in the early 50s. That's how HMD was born in 1957. And that's how we started making syringes and pioneered medical device manufacturing to a great extent in India. When I joined in 84, we were having one plant producing glass syringes and producing surgical blades with a turnover of about 2.5 crore rupees, with a manpower of about 250 people. Currently, we are 900 crore rupee plus. We got 11 factories, 4,500 employees, more than 4,000 dealers in India, exporting to around 120 countries in the world. And many of our product lines are top 3 in the world. So how did we reach this? When I joined the company, I had just done BCom honors. I wanted to be an IIT graduate, but I would say, not good enough to get into IIT. And I didn't want to go to a second-rate college. I moved from science to commerce and did BCom honors from Delhi University. One of my father's friends told me not to worry. He says, an engineer will always find it difficult to hire a businessman. But a businessman will always find it easy to hire an engineer. So if you've not done engineering, don't worry. Until the age of 30, a man of science and engineering rules. After the age of 30, a man of commerce and arts will rule. I took his advice sincerely and studied management and organization and human psychology and industrial psychology in college. This was completely outside the curriculum of BCom, but I taught myself and educated myself in the various libraries available in Delhi University. Having joined the company in 1984, I spent 1 year on the shop floor, working like a production supervisor, chasing production on an hourly basis, understanding how wastages have to be reduced, rejections have to be reduced, making good industrial relationships with the workers and with the supervisors, boys and girls, understanding IR and HR on the shop floor, training, development, maintenance. And from that, and the learnings I had from my uncles who were heading the manufacturing in the various plants, I created, and till date in HMD, that is still what we create as HMD's PMS, Production Management System. And till date, this has become, I would say, a backbone of how we operate our various operations and train all our plant heads and the production heads who join our company. We don't take people from the competition, neither in manufacturing, nor in marketing, nor in any department. We take people from various industrial backgrounds, whether from automobile or food or carpentry or whatever, and we will train them and give them a growth opportunity in the company. And what we look for basically is a positive, progressive attitude. Over the period of 1 year, when I was experimenting and working on various executive programs outside of the factory I used to be attending, I would bring that learning into the factory and apply it on the shop floor and in my company. After 1 year's time, my father said that I don't want you to be just cleaning machines and greasing your hands. It's about time you came to the head office and learned what the business is all about. Otherwise, you'll become a supervisor only. With that, I started understanding what's business all about. Under his tutelage and under his wings, sitting in the same office as him. Thereafter, I went through various departments in the company, understood each function and the critical role played by each department. And in doing that, I reached out to subject experts in the company and outside the company, in large organizations, to see what are the best practices being done by these large organizations. And bringing that expertise or the development into that particular department so that the department could thrive and grow. Many departments were not there, then they were created. For example, we had a sales department, but no marketing department. So marketing was created. We had quality control, but no quality assurance. So quality assurance was created. We didn't have IT, so IT was created. We had IR, but no HR. We had no training department. So all these departments, step by step, we created. Some from people within the organization and some from hiring people who are subject experts. And then give them the direction to help us grow this company. We started manufacturing disposable syringes in 1986, needles in 1987. cannula manufacturing in 1988, pipe manufacturing for the cannulas in 1989, IV cannulas in 1991. And we grew rapidly. In this rapid growth, there were challenges of trying to beat established competition in the market, very strong brand names, Japanese, American, German brand names in the market. So even with the advantage of our Glassman brand and the strong market position that the glass ranges had, it was a huge challenge to go forward. Our strength was our distribution network, who trusted our product and our ethics and our fair business principles. But having placed the product, it's not enough. Unless it is consumed, there'll be no recycling of orders. So just not distributing one round of products is enough. One had to reach out to the end consumers, to the doctors and to the users, and make sure that they would be having the confidence of switching over. The credibility of Glassman was helpful, but then I realized much later on that each product has to stand out on its own feet, whether in surgical, whether in medical, whether in diagnostics. And thereafter, we started the brand building exercise. So focus was on building market share. Focus was on affordability. And around that, we evolved our marketing philosophy, which was in essence, the core value coming in from my father. Giving products at a price which people will find difficult to compete with unless they compromise on quality. And to use strong operational efficiencies in reducing wastages and rejections, in making it competitive and allowing it to be growing profitably. The sales team was enthused, and I would personally go with the sales team to the various distribution outlets in India, whether in Delhi or Chennai or in Bombay. Meet the dealers, understand what's it all about, go to the hospitals, understand what's it all about, what they seek, what improvements they seek, and then come back and discuss with the technical team where we need to improve upon. And if we cannot improve upon inside, where we need to reach out. So that's how we reached out to the key technology suppliers worldwide. And we sought their inputs and collaborations. So whether it was the Japanese in needle manufacturing, the Taiwanese in syringe manufacturing, which we could afford initially, then graduated to Korean technology, later on to German technology, later on to Swiss technology. Similarly, for IV cannulas, which we introduced, we initially got in German technology, then Italian technology, and then Swedish technology. Each part of the process was benchmarked against the leading technology suppliers worldwide. So if it was injection molding, what is the best technology for injection molding? So electrical injection molding was the most advanced technology which we introduced into the country. And we were, I would say, one of the early plastic molders to bring in that technology into the country. When it was not even popular in Europe, we got it from Japan. Same thing for molds, hot runner molds. If you could afford them, were the best and the most productive technology, and we got that. For needle manufacturing, the grinding machines or the CNC grinders, that was very critical. To make any good food, a cook needs to have very high quality ingredients. So we made sure that we always bought from the best. So the glass tubing was bought from short row glass. The steels we are buying from Switzerland for making our surgical blades. For needles, we are buying from Japan. The plastics we are buying from Japan and later on moved to Korea. The paper we were getting from Sweden and from UK. Whoever were the top 3 or 5 manufacturers in the world for technology, material, or inputs, we would reach out to them. Until date, we maintained that supplier relationship. the long supplier relationship that we maintained, and many times, even my own family, they would joke with me that my relationship with my suppliers is stronger than with my customers. Because with the suppliers, we would jointly review each technology, each process, and optimize on that. So if Optinova, a tubing manufacturer in Finland, is the world leader in providing tubing for various kinds of catheters in the world, and one can buy PTFE or Teflon tubing from them, we worked with them to prepare and create a proprietary tubing, which is called Volex, and it's available only to us, which would take care of certain issues what doctors were looking for or nurses were looking for in putting a cannula in a patient and having a longer indwelling period. So less cannulas to be changed in the patient's stay in the hospital. Every time you change a IV cannula, you're having a window of infection. That kind of philosophy we maintained even with equipment suppliers. So various machines had proprietary inputs created over there, and the processes and the machines were fine-tuned or built upon with features which were unique to our company. We were one of the first companies in India, more than in the early 90s, to bring in vision camera inspection system as a technology. So every needle that we made or every IV camera that we made is checked by digital camera systems. Any point which is blunt or hooked or damaged is removed automatically. That ensures no painful or damaged needle point or blunt needle point or an incorrectly assembled needle point will reach the patient or to the doctor. So technology was one part on getting the quality formulation right. The second area was in terms of the focus upon in QMS systems. You can get technology, you can train people, systems are important. We had to move the company from being a personality-driven company, working and performing because certain exemplary key managers were excellent performers, to creating a company where people could be trained from outside and perform based on the systems that we were asking them to work under. The company was initially working on a quality control system, which was brought in by the Japanese collaboration. And that was the philosophy in the company existing. I had joined it. Thereafter, in the early 90s, we were exposed to the European model, the EN 461485, I think it was the standard before, which was the predecessor of 9001 and the predecessor of 13485. We placed those systems in the company, understood what they were all about. Initially, we had a consultant from England. And later on, we realized that rather than hiring consultants, we had to understand every aspect of the standards by ourselves. So every clause was read, understood, and debated within our organization between the key team leaders and our interpretation of that particular clause and how we could implement that. We created our own forms, we created our own structures, and we put them into place. Thereafter, when the C regulatory system came into being, the MDD, we were possibly one of the first companies in Asia to get C certification, not only in India. Even the Japanese and the Taiwanese were struggling. And the only NCR that we had in our audit from the UK auditors who came in to visit our factory was they were not satisfied with the ETO sterilization process. Those sterilizers we had imported from Taiwan. We understood what they wanted and we re-engineered those sterilizers. We had to considerably open up the sterilizers and modify them. By doing that, we understood the technology, what goes behind a sterilizer and behind the sterilization technology required in Europe which was very different than what was being used in Asia, whether in Korea, Taiwan, or Japan, or India. And after that, we started making own sterilizers. Incidentally, we have also an engineering division where many of our plant and machinery is made in-house. And this was born because when we were making glass syringes, it was virtually difficult to order machinery. It was virtually difficult to order machinery for surgical blades. So all that equipment was being created in-house by Indian engineers, based, of course, on drawings which we were procuring and sourcing from outside. While we would reverse engineer, we had an ethical approach. So we would always collaborate, pay our royalty fees, make it clear to our collaborators that we are not only going to be collaborating on the technology and the product and the process, but also on machine development part of it. So the first round of machine we may buy from Korea or Japan, wherever. Anything proprietary, second round of machinery, we may be permitted to make ourselves with their support. That was the way we were able to reduce our capex, replicate the automation. So many of the machinery that we use for our blades, for our capillary manufacturing, for our needle grinding, for our syringe assembly, for our needle manufacturing, it may have come initially from our abroad, but on today's date, most of it is being done in-house, including even vision inspection systems. So we keep on upgrading internally. And like I mentioned to you, it's an open book relationship with our suppliers. So many times we can't afford a technology or a machine. We tell them openly that we are buying first one from you and maybe the second one from you, but the third machine onwards we can't afford. And this is only to get the machine and to replicate that. And we replicate, but we will not be competing with you and selling that machine anywhere in the world. But we want to collaborate with you and make the machine for ourselves. So by doing that, they would trust us, share with us the drawings and the technology details, and allow us to make that high technology machines also in India with that high level of automation. And that's how we were able to considerably reduce our capex and be competitive and compete with the MNCs in India. The goal for me was very simple. We need to be initially in the top 10. Having achieved that, ambition was to be in the top 5. And for many products, having achieved that, now the ambition has been to be in the top 3. We've achieved the top 3 position in syringes and needles, top 5 in IV cannulas. Other products like we've recently introduced, whether it is the insulin pen needles, blood collection needles, the blood collection tubing for the IVD industry or the IVD market. We still have to come into the top 10, but we are confident we'll do that. And we're confident one day we'll also be in the top 5. So having a very focused approach, a patient approach, and perseverance is what we've been working upon. Having achieved success in these various products based on the focus on quality, HR and training and allowing people to have a career in our company HMD, the supplier partnerships I just told you about, I thought it is necessary that we needed also to address the ecosystem. HMD could only grow if the cake was bigger. Otherwise, too many people were fighting for the slice in the cake. So thereafter, with some like-minded people, we created IMED. IMED is the Association of Indian Medical Device Industry. We offered, because we were a small company, we offered the chair of IMED to the MD of Medtronics and to the MD of Johnson & Johnson. Unfortunately, they were disdainful about the initiative. They thought that CI and FICCI and the large organizations are already adequate, and they did not feel the need of an Indian-specific forum to be created, especially a forum which was focused only on a single objective for promoting Make in India and encouraging responsible manufacturing in an ethical manner. But we persevered and went ahead And over the last 10 years, we created IMET to be a strong association, have its own credibility with the various government departments and various organizations in India. And it has become a brand and a force in its own right. On today's date, no government body will take a decision without consulting IMET. So whether they act on the proposals or not, we may be having 70% or 90% success rate in achieving that over a period of time. But at least one thing is there, no proposal by any association or by any stakeholder will be passed without seeking the views of IMET in taking that forward. This kind of collaborative approach has now culminated even in the Parliament understanding our needs. And most recently, I would say in September, the parliamentary recommendations came out, which sought from the government various changes, chief and foremost being creating a separate department for medical devices, moving it from the Ministry of Chemical and Fertilizers into the Ministry of Health or Healthcare Products, having a separate law for medical devices, because medical devices, including IVD, are not drugs. So just a simple rule book is not enough. The penal system needs to be built on the FSSAI system, which will be mainly be decriminalized. And the whole system in regulations, because that's what I learned in my own company, and that's what I saw from the government also. Discipline brings in quality and brings in betterment. As long as that discipline is imbibed and it's not forced upon you. So one has to appreciate that. Once you bring in that discipline, you can go at very high speeds. You go to Germany, you go to Japan. In Germany, you've got a minimum speed limit. You're not allowed to drive on many highways less than 160 kilometers an hour, 120 kilometers an hour. There's no upper speed limit. And how is that achieved? Because everybody knows his role and position. In India, unfortunately, when we play hockey or football, you'll find the key player, the captain, whether in cricket, trying to be an all-rounder running all over the place. It's important, captains of industry, including myself, try not to do that. We have to learn to delegate, learn to train, learn to let go. We have to create leaders around us. And by doing that, I was able to free the time from my own company and take out considerable amount of time in the role of IMET, because when you talk about public relationship and interacting with the government requires a lot of time investment and a lot of patience. So that's what we've been able to achieve. Many miles to go before we can sleep. The journey is still not over, and I'm available to answer any of your questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Nath. I love those closing words by Robert Frost, right? Miles to go before I sleep. The woods are lovely, dark and deep. But yes, I have, it's always a very enlightening experience to listen to somebody who's come up the ranks. I mean, yes, it was a family business, but you went on the shop floor and you learned from ground zero. So I have a few questions, if you can indulge me, sir. Considering that you did your BCom instead of engineering, today there is not a person sitting on this forum or anywhere else who has not been touched by your product, whether I talk about syringes and needles, right? And how did that change in terms of, I understood what you said that, after 30, you need to be a more BCom business oriented than engineering oriented. But were there any challenges you faced primarily in the early years? Because your product is a very technical product. So how did you get past those challenges?
Actually, not at all, because like I mentioned, since I had done science and I was aspiring to be an engineer until my class 12th, I could understand drawings, I could read drawings, I could understand engineering tolerances. I knew what was a micron. Okay. We are making glass syringes to a specification of plus minus 1 micron. It's difficult to imagine producing that in millions. You buy a syringe now, you buy a syringe 10 years earlier. in a place like Ames, is going to be disassembled, washed, cleaned, and assembled again. It must not lock, jam, or leak. For a glass product to achieve that in engineering is a very tough tolerance. And having appreciated that challenge in my very first year, after that, every product which we made was relatively much simpler. In syringes, we have got tolerances of 20 to 50 microns. That's a cakewalk compared to the plus minus 1 micron I'm talking about.
Absolutely.
In needles, it's a 5 micron tolerance. So after that, it was not an issue. But I would say, had an aptitude. So every plant and machinery, many molds in the early days, I used to go personally inspect myself. Before we had engineers who could go abroad and they would do the pre-shipment inspection or the FATs or the SATs. It was done by me individually. So every machine was installed and commissioned initially in the early, I would say initial 2 decades in front of myself. And I enjoyed doing that. Every product being born, every machine coming up and being installed and commissioned. There's so much learning that period of time. Once it's running smoothly, there's no learning. But it's a setup time when you learn a lot.
Thank you, sir. Another thing that came to my mind, because when you mentioned you have supplier relationships with multiple parts of the globe in different geographies. So, when you look at it from the global supply chain perspective, there must have been obviously challenges, because whether you're dealing with the Japanese or you're dealing with the Taiwanese and getting evaluated for your CE by the Europeans, that creates its own set of challenges. But how have we, there is always a risk with global supply chain, which is when you have disruptions, like over the last 2 years, there have been disruptions in the global supply chain. How have you countered that? What has been the move towards the Make in India initiative at your end?
Very interesting question, because yes, COVID was highly disruptive and people really wondered how did we manage with so much import dependency. In HMD, we've done a lot of backward integration. So from syringes, we started making needles. From needles, we started making our cannulas. Cannulas, we started making our own raw materials, the capillary piping. Each downstream product that we made, we were introduced by one supplier to another supplier because there was a trust factor. And the Japanese or the Italians or the Germans don't open up easily and let go of the technology easily. But I reached out to my various competitors worldwide. For example, the chairman of Arzana in Italy, the chairman of Nipro in Japan. And I asked them, how do you compete with the likes of BD? And what is your advice for somebody like me who wants to compete and survive in India against the might of a large organization like BD? And they typically told me 2 areas I have to focus upon. One is I must be able to have good relationship with the ecosystem, with the government and the regulators. Get them on my side. And the second area, which was the more important one, was that getting the message across to them that it's in their interest to collaborate with me. That if BD would succeed in India, that would give them such a strong platform in India that nobody in Asia will be able to compete against somebody having that large market access and a strong competitive manufacturing environment in India and giving them the competitive advantage. They saw it in their own interest. India is not their market, but if there's a strong player in India who is not directly competing with them in their markets, they need to support that. I convinced them on that. And with that, they allowed me entry onto the shop floor and entry into the technology. And many times my father, my uncle, senior people in my factory would be amazed. Sometimes they would be allowed inside and sometimes they'll be allowed only a particular department or a section which we opened up to them. But being a BCom person, I was not an engineer. I was given free access. I was able to walk around any plant wherever I wanted and pick and choose what I wanted to see and pick and choose what I wanted to bring to India, because for them, this was not a threat of being copying that. For them, it was a business thing that once he understands, he'll pay the price for it. So it has its advantages.
Oh, yes, absolutely. Absolutely. I never saw that one coming. Mr. Nath, I never saw that one coming. Trust the BCom guy, don't trust the engineer, because engineers do their thing. But like you said, getting access, whether it's to a competitor or to the government. Since I have seen you, it was never about the HMD background. It was always about IMED. Spending a minute or two more on the subject of IMED. When this idea came to you, you were a founder of IMED. What was your pain point? Every solution is made for a particular problem. So, what was that main problem that you assessed when you said, let's have an association, let's go down the road of IMED?
Okay. The pain point was a large international conference on regulations was being held in Delhi. AHPI, Association of, sorry, not AHPI, the Dr. Sanjeev can possibly indulge me on that. The Asian regulatory.
Which year you are referring to?
Yeah. So every country had a table. There were typically 3 to 5 people sitting on each country table, whether Malaysia, Japan, Singapore, China, also India. We 3 manufacturers shyly were sitting at the back row. We were waiting for the government or regulators to invite some of us to sit and represent India on the table over there. The people who were invited to sit over there were not manufacturing the product in India. They were key market players in India. And that's when I felt that if somebody like Medtronics or Boston Scientific or Abbott is going to be representing India without making the product in India, how they can talk about regulations in India and about regulatory pains in India? They've not faced the Indian regulators. They've not faced the inspectors. So we need to have our own voice across and communicate our own issues across. And at that conference, I realized that the great cohesive working, each country had a regulator as part of the delegation, an industry person, and a consultant. Typically, these 3 people were there from every country's delegation. And in India, we didn't have that structure. And India was the host country.
Oh.
So Mr. Mitra was managing everything as the Deputy Drug Controller of India, being the subject expert on medical devices. That time only syringes, needles, IV sets, transfusion sets were regulated, nothing else. And these 10 products, IV cannulas, Calvin sets, had just recently been announced by the Supreme Court to come under regulation. So still very early days. That's when we decided that we needed to have our own forum, our own voice, and our own team over there. So when we created that, I made myself like a secretary, the forum coordinator. And we sought people to come forward as chairman and presidents. When they refused, we said, okay, we will create a different kind of organization, a different kind of structure in IMED. So we don't have treasurers. We don't have an executive body. It's a flat organization. The emails go to every individual in the organization, every member. It's not just kept within a small group and not just told once in a year at an annual meeting what's happening. On a daily basis, people receive 10, 15 emails or even 5 emails. Sometimes they go through them, sometimes they don't go through them. It's an avalanche of information. But nobody can complain that I'm not getting information, what's not happening in the country. Within that structure, we created horizontal working groups and vertical product groups. And this group of people are used where required for regional issues, subject issues, or to create a policy paper for the government.
Well, thank you, sir. Thank you very much. One last question, that one last thing, because
Mr. Mahajan, one last question from the audience. You asked all the questions. Thank you, allowing
be my guest, sir. Please go ahead. Sir.
Please go ahead.
So, thank you, Rajiv ji. It's always a pleasure listening to you and to learn more about you and your company and other things. It's really good. While you did so much of backward integration on the machines, which I'm learning for the first time, which areas in terms of medical materials you see that you still lack backward integration, or you would want Indian companies to have medical materials for the products which HMD is manufacturing?
So I can already see that in IVD, for example, whether it's my company or any other company in India in the area of IVD diagnostics, the basic chemicals and reagents are not available in the country. most of us, for quality purposes, would be buying from the world leaders in Germany or in Japan and sourcing from somebody who can be giving the quality confidence which we seek, the purity that we seek. So that's one area I would say, and it's doable, not that it's not non-doable. Again, very interesting as far as competitiveness goes. Many times as HMD, even though I'm a Make in India believer, it'll come as a surprise to you that many times as HMD, I have purposely not allowed that technology to be made in India, to give ourselves a competitive edge. So sometimes when the technology or the access is available to a few, then of course the few will be in the members club and that few will be having a competitive edge internationally. And I learned that from the large players, they were doing this. And if we had to be in that league and play that game, we also had to do that. So many times we know we can file a patent. In HMD, we don't file patents. We don't have a single patent. It'll come as a surprise to Mr. Jatin Mahajan. Once you file a patent, it is known to the world. They can play around that patent and have the chair plus the arms.
Very true.
And build on that. But what we have is proprietary knowledge, proprietary processes, and the experience built into our company, which is not patented, but known. And even if somebody leaves, he'll have left with only a small bit of that knowledge, not the whole universal knowledge. And that part remains with the organization. And we are an organization, not an individual.
That's right.
So that's where we built our competitiveness and our edge over there. So we've got, say, 70% market share in needles, 80% in insulin syringes, more than 60% in disposable syringes in India under the Dispovan brand name, or in the IV cannulas, again, we've got more than 50% market share in India under our KitKat brand name. In surgical blades, Glassware and Technocut brand name, we are the top 3 players in the world. We are the top 3 brands in India, in USA for that matter. So all that has been built, not necessarily by patents, but by proprietary technologies. We do source and produce products under patents, again, internationally. So I believe in a principle called OPT, other people's technology, where we use technologists who are specialists in that, whether it is in Germany, Switzerland, Sweden, wherever. And like I mentioned to you, we collaborate with them. We will make the product and pay them the royalty. It's done in a transparent, clean manner. No going behind the back. And that's where we build this, I would say, wonderful relationships and partnerships. So whenever our marketing team comes to us and throws the idea to us, indigenizing it, developing it in the country, making it into a mass-produced, high-quality, consistent quality product at an affordable level is HMD's forte. But conceiving the basic concept, what will make it medical friendly, bringing that innovation, may not be done necessarily in India, may be done by anywhere in the world. With the key people that we know who are specialists, we work with them, we'll throw them the problem and we will work with them in creating the solution. So many times the solution is jointly done, but we still pay them the royalty. It's not that we created it, so we say we don't have to pay the royalty. The role of developer is fully respected, even if he's outside of India, even if it's a one-man team.
Thank you. Arjun, you're mute.
I'm sorry, I was on mute. I just wanted to express my appreciation, sir, for this, taking this interesting concept of OPT. Not too many people would say it out loud, but I'm happy you did, because the way the world works, nobody can be a specialist or an expert at everything. But there is always that one person who can bring all the experts together in one place and come out with a great result eventually. So, I have questions, but I guess I will meet you at some real world convention, and then I will pick your mind again, sir, with due permission from you. Right. Thank you so much, Mr. Nath. And we have a small Tide tradition where we present e-certificates to the gentlemen and the ladies who have graced us on this occasion as speakers. Please accept this little certificate of appreciation from our end, sir. And the hard copy will actually get it framed and sent to you. We still like to believe that since it's the digital firm, we'll do it digitally for now and then move to the real world in a week or so from now. But thank you for your time, Mr. Nath. It's been a total pleasure listening to you, sir. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Majan. Thank you for the opportunity, and I hope the story will help the entrepreneurs and the startups realize that one can start your factory from a garage or from a barsati and still grow. Many times people laugh. You want to produce these high quality technology products in a garage. And I would say that even the Minnesota story started in a garage.
Absolutely.
So don't get discouraged if people look down upon you or they laugh at you. Just have confidence in yourself and you can achieve what you want to achieve. Thank you. Thank you all once again and wish you good success with this event.
Thank you very much, sir. Thank you very much for those kind words. Moving on, that's how to call it? It's a difficult benchmark to meet, but we're now changing gears. We now move from life experiences to the subject of precision medicine. Right? Precision medicine identifies biological information like genes, RNA, DNA, proteins to stratify patients, targeting those patients most likely to respond to a specific treatment. This is medicine of the future, right? And medicine, diagnosis, and treatment are intrinsically linked. Our next speaker is Dr. Alpana Razdan, Vice President of Lab Services and leading genetic expert at Genestrings Laboratories. She will be talking about precision medicines and diagnostics. We were supposed to have originally scheduled Dr. Gaur to come on board, but due to exigent circumstances of health, Dr. Agarwal was unable to come in. We're very grateful that Dr. Razdan could make the time for us today. And thank you, ma'am, for your time. And the forum is all yours.
Thank you.
If you have a presentation, you can share.
Yeah, I would like to share the same.
Yeah, I've given you the permissions for that already. Yeah.
Can you see it?
Yes, ma'am, we can. You can just, yeah, perfect.
So today I'm going to talk about precision medicine and diagnostics and how they go hand in hand in changing the healthcare scenario. So the objective of precision medicine is to provide precise and individual diagnosis, treatment, and prevention to certain patients and diseases. So it's a branch of medicine where a patient's healthcare is precisely managed and specific diseases are diagnosed based on customized omics data analytics. So it uses the application of genomics, proteomics, and other diagnostic techniques to analyze and identify biomarkers specific to a disease so that it can be used to give customized treatment to certain patients. So why do we need precision medicines and why, what is the use and why is so much of furor over precision medicine right now? So it's because that there are instances where suppose 38% patients of depression do not respond to the first drug that is prescribed. Similarly, patients with asthma, type 2 diabetes, arthritis, Alzheimer's disease, they will not respond to the drugs that are already in use or that are being used traditionally. And if you go for drug discovery trials, they will take around 15 to 18 years for any effective drug to come out. So that is why precision medicine is being lauded nowadays, because it will understand your personal thresholds, your personal intervention options, and understands the risk profiles, how the personalized intervention can help you and move from a disease state to health. So it holds great promise to include molecular testing, genetic testing, big data, artificial intelligence, pharmacogenomics, environmental and social factors, and integration of all these into preventive and population medicine. So they will target a group of people and give them a certain kind of a drug, and then see what part of this population group is the drug has been beneficial, or the drug has been toxic and not beneficial, or the drug is not toxic, not beneficial, and finally, a group that has benefited the most from the usage of the drug. So this is all data analytics, basically, wherein they are looking at all the data available to them and trying to see what works best. So the use of precision medicine, the doctors can test a patient's DNA and predict how she or he might react to a drug. And they can translate this knowledge of patients' genes and their variants and their mutations to see the impact of and efficacy of medicines that they're prescribing. So the concern probably here is that we're working with very complex things. It's a very complex world that we're trying to get into. But that doesn't mean that we will not grow there. It just means that we have to use appropriate caution and be prepared for the results. And we may not get what we have expected, but we will still try and figure out. So applications like artificial intelligence have been used to develop algorithms for cervical cancer detection. So next generation sequencing, which is associated with single gene testing, is used to identify multiple specific mutations in a tumor and inform the selection of targeted therapy. Whether a particular chemotherapy will work best for this patient or not, what dosage of radiation will improve the state of cancer that he has in his body, and also thereby improving patient survival by avoiding less effective treatments. So we recently had a report of Google developing a health band which could detect cancer and heart attack. So these are instances where technology and big data, proteomics, metabolomics, genomics, and all this is being used collectively to come up with the solution. So the applications are varied, and the use of biomarkers for better disease subtype identification to define prognosis and inform therapy decisions. So personalized care is the careful tailoring of investigations and treatments to individuals based on evidence, consideration of circumstances, and clinical skills. So precision medicine will use all of these to identify the right kind of treatment regimen for a particular patient. So there have been some advances in the which are impressive and encouraging. We have been able to understand many uncommon diseases like cystic fibrosis and sickle cell anemia, or screening of late onset fatal diseases like Huntington's, prenatal counseling, hoping to get curated gene therapies which can be developed, and also genomics to identify the individuals at risk with certain diseases. Like we are doing predisposition tests right now and trying to understand what kind of gene mutation or what kind of genetic profile for an individual is required when or he or she might get cancer. Similarly, in reproductive health, inherited diseases, or pharmacogenomics, the application of precision medicine is tremendous. And leveraging NGS in a molecular diagnostic setting, understanding tumor heterogeneity, detection of cancer progression, and monitoring these patients by regular testing is how diagnostics and precision medicine go hand in hand. Similarly, for macrogenomics, we devise effective medicine treatment plans. We study patient populations to investigate the relationship between genetics and disease, and then discover a safe medication response for the individual. In reproductive health, we have prenatal testing. Suppose for IVF, we have this pre-implantation genetic diagnosis, wherein any patient, if a family comes with a BRCA gene mutation, we can give them a pre-implantation genetic diagnosis for their embryos and use only embryos which are BRCA gene minus, so that the disease does not pass on to their children. So there are a lot of instances and a lot of discovery that is being done nowadays to get these targeted new therapies into place. So that is how the term health informatics comes into place. So it's combining the phenotypic, genotypic, and bioinformatics data to understand a disease, to understand population data, to understand clinical data, the medical records of the patient, the environment that he's been living in, and understanding how that has affected and how he got the disease, and what we can do to prevent the scenario that he is right now in. So personalized medicine are tailored treatments, basically. So if you have been traditionally looking at medicine, we have been only doing one treatment fits all, but which may have an effect or may have no effect or may have adverse effect on a particular patient. But medicine of the future, it is more about personalized diagnosis, understanding what biomarkers, what blood, DNA, urine, and tissue analysis tells us about that particular patient, and how we can make the treatment that we are giving him more effective. There is a lot of data that is being generated in biomedicine. There are a National Library of Medicine where, where the data, NCBI data, has been growing over the years, with 22 million articles right now, and around 5,000 medical research articles being published daily. The human genome, which was first decoded in 2003, and after 1 decade of work nowadays, we have been able to decipher many mutations and many diseases by just looking at this data and understanding what we can do to improve the quality of healthcare. So precision medicine is a departure from trial and error processes. Under these traditional processes, prescribers select a product and dosage with limited biological information, monitor treatment effects, and adjust treatment accordingly. But now, with the newest therapies and with the big data in healthcare, all this can be improved, and customized and personalized treatment can be given to these patients. So precision medicine is about finding the right balance. So it is not only looking at biological omics, but also personalized care. So you will not only look at genome or epigenome, exome, or pathophysiological phenotype, but you will also understand the personalized care, traditional approaches like clinical evaluation, importance of clinician-patient rapport, discuss the social determinants and health and lifestyle behaviors. So using this precision medicine, the better health outcomes are the only result. But nowadays, since there is a lot of research being done globally about whether it is cancer or diabetes or hypertension and all these things, and this research may be in future give us a solution which will be more personalized and with the newest technologies as well as the traditional elements of personalized care. Our approach is often characterized by high rates of effective therapies rather than ineffective therapies. And although the costs are tremendously costs are very high right now, but globally there are a lot of efforts being done to reduce the costs of such treatments and come up with a solution which is good for the humanity in general. So with this, I would like to end my presentation. If there are any questions, I would be happy to take those.
Thank you very much, Dr. Razdan. I believe you're a subject matter expert on this, but it can't have been easy to come in at the last minute, right?
Yeah.
And you've done a lot of justice to the subject at hand. And we do have a few questions, which, if you will indulge me, yes, you talked about precision medicine as it's like a surgical strike. It's like a well-targeted missile hitting, enemy bunker. All that is good, but there are challenges as well, right? Especially when it comes to, how do I put it, data security. You're collecting data on an individual, and then from there on to a set of individuals, maybe a family, maybe a set of, as time goes by, there is going to be a repository of a lot of data. So, this is something that medical professionals have not really had to worry about in the past, because, correct me if I'm wrong, there is a risk when you have precision medical, if the same medicine can be used to treat, then there can be a precision virus also, right? Is that a reality we can think?
Yeah, it is a reality. So that is the reason that nowadays a lot of emphasis is being done to see how the medical reports data can be secured. So recently there was some server mishap in AIMS, and a lot of they were locked for 3 days. So this is very critical as far as the medical reports of the patients are concerned, because if you lose them, you lose everything.
It's more dangerous than your bank account, ma'am.
Yeah.
And are we facing any regulatory, when you talk about precision medicine in India, for example, right? How is the Indian scenario developing with respect to precision medicine?
So the problem is this only, that in India, there is a lot of research going on, but there is not a concerted uniform effort anywhere. So there are a lot of groups that are working individually, but nobody's thinking towards a database kind of a population database kind of a thing. When you go to any research article, or you think of any research that is being done on cancer genes or any other gene, so you see that most of the times there is either African, American, or European population being explained, but there is not much data about the South Asian population. And because there is a dearth of population databases in the South Asian region of the globe. So there are techniques, and there are people who are working for, suppose UK Biobank is an example, where people are incorporating the population in 20,000 and 50,000 people together, and understanding how a particular disease is behaving in these population groups. But such kind of efforts are lacking in India. And unless and until we do a collaborative, a concerted effort towards that direction, the role of precision medicine in India will always follow the West.
I do agree with that, because, ma'am, in India, healthcare is still heavily regulated. It's still heavily regulated. And if you saw that the people had a problem giving their Aadhaar card data, right? So what has happened at All India Institute of Medical Sciences of the last week, in fact, it exposes certain vulnerabilities. That precision medicine is a great idea, but question is India ready for it? That you have to, technology applied at the right time serves a greater need, a greater purpose, and it's important to do groundbreaking work. But do you think India is ready for precision medicine right now? Your personal opinion, of course, I understand.
See, we are ready for everything. We have the expertise, we have the brain, we have the availability of infrastructure and everything, which recently the COVID-19 proved that we could manufacture RT-PCR kits in India, we could manufacture PP in India, everything can be done. But like at the time of COVID, when the government had a concerted effort, there was a collaborative effort, a conjoined effort towards tackling the problem. Same thing needs to be done for other diseases as well. So unless and until that thing comes in the mind of the government of India and other agencies or government institutions that are working towards healthcare in India, it is not going to happen.
Because, any policy changes that have to come in, I'm
Yeah.
sorry I'm bringing that policy direction, because as somebody who's been, we are all healthcare professionals.
Yeah.
And, like Mr. Rajiv Nath spoke earlier a little while ago, that there are challenges that they faced. So a lot of things were not even thought of, because the people in power, the people in the administrative side of power never thought about it. So,
Yeah, so there has to be a change in policy. There has to be a change. There has to be an intent to do all these things in India. And unless and until that intent is there, we cannot move forward, because directionless research is not going anywhere.
a quick question on the kind, when you're doing precision medicine, you're targeting a certain gene, for example, yes, India is behind on the numbers. India is behind on the kind of approach to this particular medical treatment system. So is there any mindset change that you think the patients also have to inculcate, a new mindset? Because
they have to, because they are part of the system. Unless and until the patients are there for collaboration, we will not be able to. Even if there is a study, they have to be forthcoming to be a part of that study. So that will happen only when the government takes an initiative and brings everybody together towards tackling a particular problem.
Okay. And all right, let me ask my fellow panelists if they have any questions. I'm a risk manager, so I look at the risks always, identify the risks, mitigate those risks, and move ahead. And, Dr. Razan, your precision medicine is new for all of us. We've heard about it. We've actually heard about it. It's done abroad, but it's very good that you have brought this to this particular forum. And we really need to look at sunrise sectors of medical development. And I personally believe it is a sunrise sector.
Yeah. And particularly these lifestyle diseases like diabetes, hypertension, which are so much prevalent in the Indian population and leading to a lot of morbidity and mortality here in India. And also prenatal diseases like Down syndrome, autism, and such diseases, which we are also working on a project on autism. And we can see that there is a lot of diagnostic issues, even when the children are sent to us saying that they have autism, they are basically some other mental disorder or neurodevelopmental disorder, which is not actually autism. So things like these, the diagnostic capabilities and the overall scenario of healthcare in India needs to be developed.
So I'm just curious, when you look at diabetes, for example, you mentioned diabetes offhand in your point out here. India is now we are the diabetes capital of the world.
Yes.
Given our population, we are going to overtake China, right?
Yeah.
The world has touched 8 billion. India is at 1.5. So, hey, and we love our sweets also, apart from other things. So we are the diabetes capital. But how would targeted precision medicine work here? Given the propensity, would it not become cost ineffective from a treatment perspective? If you can't have 50,000 different solutions.
Yeah.
How would that work in a country like India, ma'am?
So basically, the solution for that is a population database, which is representative of all the regions in the country. Suppose we take some representative population of North, East, South, and West, and create a database and try to understand what are the gene variants that are linked to diabetes that may be responsible for having the more disease in India. What are the lifestyle factors? What are the environmental conditions in the population which give rise to such diseases? So it is a holistic approach. So it is not looking at only precision medicine or only looking at genes that will create a solution. It will be a uniform evaluation of the whole population to understand why this disease is more prevalent in India than any other country in the world.
And would this be a cost-effective implementation? I mean,
Yes, from the time that human genome was for 50 crores or something, it has gone down to 1,000 rupees now. So the costs have come drastically down, but still we are using reagents which are based out of companies that are in the West. So if we do indigenous manufacturing, we do a lot of research about manufacturing these kits in India, so we can reduce the cost considerably.
one part is the testing, one part is the patients. But more important than all those two is the third part, the third piece of the jigsaw puzzle, and that is the doctor, the medical professionals.
Yes.
Who are working, because traditional medicine doesn't go in the direction that you're speaking.
No.
So we need to have a new breed of medical professionals.
So that requires proper training of these clinicians. Right now, even the knowledge of genetics is very low in India. I mean, the clinicians does not know where a whole exome sequencing should be prescribed to a patient. So that kind of awareness, that kind of educational webinars or seminars are very important for the education of these clinicians, so that they can utilize the therapy to its complete fulfillment.
Yes, because it's like having you have the student, you have the subject, but you need to have the teacher as well.
Yes.
And if you don't have the teacher, ma'am, then it is a little bit of a challenge, because then the education is not provided correctly.
So the teachers are very few, although we are trying our best to wherever we can to counsel them and make them understand the kind of testing that we are doing here. But yes, it requires more effort.
So the entire supply chain has to be put in place.
Yes.
The value chain is currently it's there in bits and pieces.
Yeah.
Where do you see, I mean, just an opinion here, of course, where do you see this going in next 5 years, in the 10 years? Do we see exponential growth towards precision medicine?
Yeah. Yes, because it has been shown globally that cancer treatments are very effective when they are done in a way of understanding the genetic profile of the people. And here also the bigger cancer institutes that are working here, they're also using these kind of therapies and seeing good results when they are doing treatment of their patients. So once the doctors, the clinicians understand the predictive power of precision medicine and how it is going to be effective in treating their patients, they will definitely take a road towards the precision medicine.
Ma'am, can you share with us any, specific, without names, of course, any case study where you have seen a traditional medicine not be as successful, and precision medicine, in your experience, has helped?
So there are numerous instances of we doing this oncology testing and coming up with a gene with a very unknown mutation, and then understanding from the oncology databases what kind of mutation is it and what kind of chemotherapy would be more responsive in a particular patient. And right now, the databases that we are using are linked to the global databases, and a lot of clinical trials are being done on cancer and other things. And there are cases where we have gotten a drug which was effective, more effective than the drug the doctors were previously using, based on the mutation that they got in the report.
Well, thank you so much, ma'am. Thank you for your time. And like I said, there's always something new to learn, and I'm glad we at TIDE 2022 have had something new to learn.
Thank you very much.
My apologies if I sounded like the layman today, but I've learned one thing: there's nothing like a bad question.
That's true.
Right. So, ma'am, on behalf of everyone at TIDE 2022, thank you so much for your time. A small certificate of appreciation. The formal certificate will be framed and sent to you shortly. But thank you for your time, ma'am, and we look forward. Please don't leave. We want you to stay on and listen to the others as well. Right.
Sure. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Have a good day. Well, ladies and gentlemen, we do have a little, we've been at it for the last 1.5 hours. Let's take a short 5 to 10 minute break, or we will see you back here at TIDE 2022 at 3:45 p.m. Right? Our next speaker, trust me, he's one of a few. He is one of the few healthcare investment bankers, and you are going to love listening to him. So when we come back, we will be joined by Mr. Vishal Gandhi, and we will take this forward. See you in 10 minutes. I would have loved to save the subject for the last end of the day, but I believe that sometimes it's the middle overs and you need to play your best bowler in the middle overs as well, right? So without further ado, coming to talk to us now is Dr. Sanjeev Kumar Gupta on the subject of regulatory evolution. Sir, forum is yours.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Mahajan. Give me a minute to set my screen.
Sure thing, sir.
Are you able to see my screen and are you able to hear me?
Loud and clear.
Very good. Thank you very much. And I'm happy to be part of TITE. I met Mr. Mahajan last month in Delhi when he spoke to me about this. And I was pretty happy that I'm connecting to a very dynamic event. And I'm going to be sharing my knowledge. And since this is not specifically an IVD industry segment, I have tried to keep my talk in general so that I can help people connect with the subject rather than giving deep insights into specific regulations. And I will try my level best in very simple terms and languages. And every talk, when we talk about a particular subject, is about a perspective of a speaker, along with the subject, the content of the subject. So I'm going to be sharing my perspective with all the listeners here today, and we'll be moving ahead. But just to give you a background so that my perspective become a little more clear to you, this is my professional background. I come from medical and IVD medical device segment, and with a career of about 25 years of working in different companies. I'm not going to read all of them, but you can see some of the very major names from Indian IVD industry and medical device industry. With this, in 2020, I jumped into as a consultant into the fray, and for last 2.5 years, I've been working as an independent consultant. My company Interest gives consulting into various fields of medical devices and IVD. But if I have to segment, I can segment this into two only, that the quality management system, which is based on 13485, and the regulation, which could be for India, EU, US, and for that matter, any other country. And I cover all classes of medical devices and in vitro diagnostic devices. There are various aspects, but the top of everything is the lowermost, which is WHO emergency use listing and WHO pre-qualification of in vitro diagnostics. This is a transforming thing which is happening across the world for in vitro diagnostics. I'll touch upon this a little more. And this is just a glimpse of my interactions with my companies in line and in person, and training people and kind of, bringing a transformation in their thinking, and more importantly, in the implementation of regulatory and quality management system requirements. Our first eminent speaker, Mr. Rajiv, has a very good part of his professional story that he had worked on the workshop shop floor, and he connected with all the departments. He connected with all professionals in the company. And I vouch for it that until you work at that level, you neither learn nor you deliver, and you can't even understand what people under you are working for and whether they are doing it right or wrong. So one has to be, learning and doing things at the shop floor along with other people in the company so that the best comes out. As a scientist, as a person who is working in different companies, I've been personally associated with a couple of products into diagnostic segment. The first one you see is a new approach for prostate-specific antigen, which was published in International Journal of Biological Macromolecules. Then a rapid test for respiratory viruses, and then you can see this Aspergillus fumigatus. This is a fungal diagnostic ELISA kit for co-testing in TB cases. Then you have the rapid test of COVID-19. And then the latest in my kitty, along with my involvement, has been a molecular test for diagnosis of TB and detection of resistance to rifampicin and isoniazid in a single test. So this is my hands-on, plus there are a couple of more things which I have not put it here. These are the ones which got translated into product. And with this background, I will come to the title, which is like regulatory overview and expectations in an ever-evolving diagnostic environment. So I will try to keep my timelines in limit, and I'll also try to explain things so that you get a flavor of it. So if I look at WHO says very specific statement, diagnosis is a driver of patient, financial, and health systems impact, and a critical enabler of universal health coverage, but it is also the weakest link in the care cascade. A very strong statement where it praises the diagnosis, but also ends it with saying it has a weakest link in the care cascade. Now, what is the impact of this? This impact is directly to a very specific point, availability of diagnostics to the last person in the chain. That's what exactly it means. And when we look at global diagnostics, there are 3-4 different levels. One is a primary healthcare center, and a first level hospital, and a referral hospital. Obviously, so far the trends have been that you do most basic technology testing at the primary healthcare center, and then you do a little better technology at the first level hospital, and then you do high level technology at the referral hospital and a very high-end hospital. These divisions are there for different diseases and based on the different technology. And of course, apart from the technology, the cost is also a very significant factor. When we take it to the primary health center, the costs have to be lower so that it can go to the masses. But you will see many people who belong to the IVD industry or the IVD users, they see there is a clear-cut strata which gets into different tier cities, different tier hospitals as far as the IVD is concerned. It is very important for all of us to know, because of the topic of this talk, what is an IVD? So if I take the global definition, it says if any in vitro diagnostic medical device that is a reagent product, a calibrator, control material, kit, instrument, apparatus, piece of equipment, software, or a necessary. So in a way, they have covered so many diversified things which can classify or qualify to become an in vitro diagnostic product, either when they're used alone, independently, or in combination. So the manufacturer tells how it has to be used. Okay, so this definition is very, very important. Why I'm telling this definition at this platform, where many people may know this basic definition. Many a times we claim that we have got a diagnostic products, but the question is, have we seen back and have we assessed that, do we fit the definition of the in vitro diagnostics, which is globally acceptable? So this definition definitely helps people to assess whether what they have is a diagnostic product or not. There are various ways, as I said, it's a speaker's perspective. So if I talk about the global diagnostic products, there are diagnostic products which we all know today in terms of rapid tests, in terms of ELISAs, in terms of molecular tests, in terms of other things, okay? But there is a specific area which is called lab-based diagnostics. This lab-based diagnostics means that there is a diagnostic test which is specifically available only at Lal Pathology, as an example, okay? Why? Because they have developed this in-house and they're using it in-house. What I've seen during COVID times is that there is a lab, same lab like this, I won't say the name, that they have developed a lab-based test, and they also are giving it to other laboratories which do not belong to the same company group. Now what happens? A lab-based test gets converted into a diagnostic product, and probably they have bypassed some of the regulation, which is what I'm going to talk about. Then there is something called companion diagnostics. It's called CDS. An example is Coba's EGFR mutation test. Our earlier Dr. Razan was talking about a lot of genetic testing, mutation testing, and other things. It can be for cancer, it can be for infectious disease, it can be for anything. Recently in my family, there have been a case where a gene mutation has created problem in the treatment in Delhi area. But the two, lab-based diagnostics and companion diagnostics, have a direct relation with precision medicine, where individualized healthcare for patient is being done. The question here in today's talk is whether all lab-based diagnostics which are practiced in India, whether all companion diagnostics which are used in India, have they gone through a complete regulatory profiling? Are these approved product, whether you are making it in-house, using it in-house, or even you are given it by a pharmaceutical company as a companion diagnostics. I had one of the client coming in from one of the renowned cities in India that they were making a lot of lab-based molecular diagnostic kits, and they were once again giving it to other people, and they wanted to regularize it under CDSCO licensing regime. That was a very welcome step. Then the latest addition into this is software as a medical devices. There are two kinds of softwares. Again, there are a lot of confusion in this area as far as the regulation is concerned. There is called software as a medical device. Then there is a software in medical device that's called SIMD. Most of the instruments which you use, automated instruments which you use in diagnostics, do have a labware or a systemware which is used to operate the device. That is not a software as a medical device. A lot of places use data management of the diagnostic output. That is also not a software as a medical device. A software as a medical device is a very upcoming field. Many startups are talking about, claiming about it, that they have really good SAMDs. Sometimes they fail even in the definition of an SAMD. I'm keeping one particular category out of it, that is digital diagnostics, or imaging diagnostics, because that is generally called in vivo diagnostics, and I'm not covering that in today's talk. So we will cover generally the regulation of about diagnostics, lab-based diagnostics, companion diagnostics, and SAMD put together. Now, there are various ways to look at in vitro diagnostics. If you want to look at it from the perspective of one particular category, that's a product type. You can call it reagent, you can call it instrument, you can call it accessory, you can call it software. And when it talks about software, it can also be getting into a services segment. When you talk about the technology platform, you can say immunoassays, hematology assays, clinical chemistry, microbiology, molecular assays. If you want to categorize them based on the disease type, you will have infectious, cancer, cardiac, autoimmune, nephrology, GI, and many more. But the most significant aspect of independent of the product type, tech platform, or disease type, it's about user type, whether it's for self-use or by a partially trained technician or a pathology lab head or a high-end hospital or point of care, because the regulation depends on two things primarily. One is the technology platform, higher is the technology, higher is the regulation, and the user type. More self it becomes in certain categories, it becomes easier, but when it is not self, then there are special requirements for the regulation. A glimpse in different kinds of IVDs which you have rapid tests, you have ELISA tests, you have molecular tests, there are all kinds of products. And you also have the calibrator and control sitting here. You also have the containers of IVD. Everything fits into IVD. Now, one particular category, in fact, two particular categories are there within the IVD, which are also having a requirement of in vivo testing. The first one is the blood grouping testing, though it's a diagnostic product, but it is also, no, this particular one is an IVD in general. But if you talk about the Mentox test, where you have to do that skin testing, that is an in vivo diagnostic test using a reagent. That's unlike the imaging diagnostics. So that is, or when it comes to the regulation, then there are additional regulation which applies apart from the diagnostics. Now, any diagnostics, whatever it is, we need to see what is being detected. Okay, whether it's an antibody, which type of an antibody, a protein antigen, examples like hepatitis B surface antigen, prostate-specific antigen, or a fungal antigen, a specific protein marker, or an antigen isoform, or a glycan antigen, or a glycoprotein antigen. If you look at most serum markers for breast cancer, which are based on Immunology assays, mostly they are glycoprotein antigens, and which also use the power of tandem repeats in those antigens to develop good antibodies and set up good assays. A hormone or its derivative or its metabolites, gene targets, gene mutations, or other biochemical molecules. Very categorically, intended use of an IVD must be saying what is being detected, because that drives the regulation. I give you an example from tuberculosis again. You know, if you look at different products, if you look at Gene Expert, MTB, and RIF, that the kind of markers they are, kind of gene targets they're catching up. If you look at TrueNet MTB, and if you look at TrueNet MTB RIF, which is specific in comparison to Gene Expert MTB RIF, they have different codons are being captured. If you look at the last product, which is MFlow DX MDR-TB, they are also looking at similar gene targets or additional gene targets. So it is very, very important that we know, and when we say we have a diagnostic assay, that we give a complete clarity as to what does it detect. Many IVD products, even now in today's time when regulation has evolved all over the world, they don't have a clearly written intended use. If you don't have a very clearly written intended use, the regulation will keep asking you and your product launches will get delayed. Now, whichever product we want to bring out, irrespective of the technology, there are certain basic things which are required by the innovator and by the manufacturer of IVD, that they talk about two particular kind of sensitivities and specificities. There are a lot of confusion in general conversations when we say we are talking about sensitivity. There are analytical sensitivity requirements, there are clinical sensitivity requirements, then there are analytical specificity requirements, then there are clinical specificity requirements. Regulation wants all this information very, very categorically. Then we need to know the reproducibility into very different kinds of setups. Then we need repeatability, which is very important criteria for any product to be successful. Then we have linearity requirements. Every assay, in fact, no assay is a perfectly linear assay. So we must very clearly know as to what is the graph of the linearity, how it is going to be used. And of course, a very critical information is about stability studies, not only of the product, but also all the specimens which are targeted for the use. Because if you take a specimen today and test it 2 hours after or 2 days after, the results may vary. So it is manufacturer's responsibility to ensure and say and tell that the target analyte, which is claimed in my intended use, is also stable or not stable, or it should be freshly sampled. You know, the exact information has to be given in the intended use. Now, if we talk about the tied endpoints, if we talk about the transformation endpoints, what are few? So I think all of us would agree that we require a fast IV, a very fast diagnostics. It has to be accurate and it has to be affordable. When it comes to the accurate, it is a responsibility of the regulatory governance, irrespective of the technology, cost, and manufacturing. And when it comes to the speed of the test and the affordability, it is little more expanded responsibility of the innovator, the manufacturer, and the lawmaker. And of course, the logistics organizations or supply chain organizations also come in between. Now, what industry expects? There may be some listeners from the industry and some from other segments. Industry wants there has to be an accelerated, streamlined, and optimized regulatory decisions. A very simple expectation. But what is it based on? Because regulators have their own expectations. So it's both expectations can meet the bottom line when they serve each other's purpose very nicely. If you're looking for accelerated, streamlined, and optimized regulatory decisions, it is a responsibility of all the stakeholders. And manufacturers play the largest role into this because they provide the maximum information about the product which is being sold. Then the users, and then the patients. And then, of course, some information for this comes from harmonized academia and industry research. And then is the regulator's role. Many times I've heard people saying, why doesn't regulator control it? The regulator cannot control everything. Regulator is there to learn and move and control, because especially in India, regulator does not have that kind of resource and even that kind of technical strength. Rajiv ji talked about it, separate law, separate team, which is good in many ways. And let us all hope, how does it happen? I can tell you the way US FDA has a large team of technical experts. They have labs, they have everything. And when we submit the information, they really, really discuss, review, and talk about it. I'll show you one example. How does it go? But if you really want to understand, how the regulation is catching up and it is ever evolving, we need to understand the life cycle. Every IVD has a life cycle wherein it starts from idea and it reaches to user. And then there is a cyclic exercise from design and development, which is generally called an R&D, so that it becomes a vicious cycle for any product, in which if there are complaints into the product, it will go back to R&D and then it will follow the cycle. The quality regulation wants, any regulation, global regulation wants, that all IVD manufacturing, all IVD R&D verification, validations, or everything around the life cycle of the product must be done within the quality management system. Now, quality management system is, I have never seen something like 13485. Very, very nice standard. As Rajiv ji said, read every clause, understand it. So what I have done to make it easier for my clients is that many of us who come from the science background, who have seen an elemental table into our chemistry chapters, I have converted 13485 into a clausiotic table, and which I help my clients understand very well. If they don't understand the standard, they can't implement. There are ways in which 13485 is being implemented today. There are 4 categories. First category is that you get a 13485 certificate by showing your PAN card. So one can imagine what kind of a certificate it is going to be. Then you get a certificate which comes to you in less than a month. Again, no certification can come unless you have demonstration, a cycle of establishment, cycle of implementation, and cycle of demonstration. The third and the fourth category is a little better. And the fourth category is when it takes about 4 to 6 months to get a certification done, and you have covered this entire life cycle of your product. Quality management system and regulation go hands in hand. QMS 13485 is incomplete without considering the regulatory requirements, and regulation is incomplete without considering the quality management system requirement. Now, what is the impact of this? The impact of this can be seen in hospitals where there are lab-grown tests. Have they undergone quality management system controls? Have they undergone regulation? That's a question which people need to ask if you really want to bring in transformation. We're talking about companion diagnostics. Have they really been produced in a quality management system? Have they really been approved by the regulation? There's a big requirement if you're really looking transformation into Indian IVD segments. But do we really have, having said that, do we have status and some focus by which we can say there is a transformation in IVD segment? I am so happy to see this. 3 great Indian products in TB diagnosis and resistance diagnosis. They all have come through a solid QMS, a solid regulation. And this is a huge transformation in Indian IVD industry. A couple of years ago, when Molbio brought in 2 machines, which made it possible to test, do the TB testing at the POC level, at the primary healthcare, even at the village level, that is being taken to the next level by these 2 products. And MELAP yesterday launched an automated test case for multi-drug resistance, and you have a more simplified form of multi-drug test and TB detection into a 2-kit combination, wherein the results can be seen on a rapid test. I call it a transformation in diagnostic science. Another transformation which comes from global angle is PIPS. I don't know how many people who are listening really know about it. It's Philips IntelliSight pathology solution, wherein it helps a lot of pathologists to avoid looking at slides through a conventional light microscope, and they can see the images, okay, which have been captured by FDA-approved system. And FDA has not just done it, on the basis of any approach or anything. They have really reviewed and evaluated and given a go-ahead for this test. And they've also established that to the confidence limit of 92 to 95, that this can be done. And PIPS has now become a really, really highly used system across the globe. I do not really know how much installations are there in India, but I really say this is a transformation, and such transformations are needed. There is already a ground set as far as the technology is concerned, as far as the regulatory approval is concerned. Now, another area of transformation where Indian regulation is coming up to the standards is that they have allowed use of Indian standards, they have allowed the use of ISO standards, they have allowed the use of ASTM standards, and they have also very categorically started looking at manufacturers' own in-house standards. Why is this slide important? Because taking you back to my earlier slide wherein I said manufacturer has to provide a lot of information that the product has been developed in compliance with the QMS requirements and in compliance with the regulatory requirements. And regulatory requirements say that your product should comply with some defined requirements. For example, if you want to talk about anti-HCV, anti-HIV, or HBsAg tests on any platform, these tests have to comply with the requirements of CDSCO NIB, wherein they talk about the requirements of analytical sensitivity, wherein they talk about the requirements of clinical sensitivity and the clinical specificity, and also the stability studies. Okay, and then going to the next level now for many more diseases coming up is WHO technical specification series. This, of course, has little limitation in terms of TSS publications, because TSS come up for those products for which member states demand. There are already a good list of products which qualify for WHO, which are eligible for WHO qualification. The new products which are going to be added is HbA1c, hemoglobin meter, as well as the glucometers. And currently what is going on is molecular test of TB. So this brings next level of transformation when newer standards are being published and those are adopted by the regulator as well as the manufacturer or the innovator. This is just an example for TB diagnostics. We recently have seen CDSCO comments which have come on manufacturing license application review that please tell us how do you comply with the requirements which have been listed by WHO. So this brings a transformation in the licensing process as far as one particular product is concerned. They're just not, the decisions are not just based on whims and fancy of a couple of people. There is a reference document which is being considered so that there is a good product which is allowed. Then regulatory communication is something which India has been striving for in terms of transformation in the regulatory process. This one I'm showing it to you from the US FDA. The first box is once the application has been submitted, we have categorically been given 3 dates, which are in the red box. You can see November 29th, January 13th, and February 12th. Nobody needs to follow anything. It's very categorically mentioned. These are your 3 target days. If you look at the box which is down there, this is an email which comes from US FDA saying, I am the person who has been assigned to look at your regulatory submission. This is a huge, huge transformation. This is also, even in US FDA, this is new because they have started accepting now their applications only online. So this is huge. I know who's reviewing my product or my submission, what are the dates. I don't really have to worry. I only have to think about it, what they might be asking, what I need to provide as an additional information to them. And if you are well prepared, this process really becomes easy and you feel that your product is going faster. When it comes to our own online system medical devices, there are still gaps, but it is better than what it used to be 10 years before or 5 years before. Now one knows that what is happening. There is a dashboard, you really can follow things. You can also talk to them in person. But yes, to arrive at this level, the transformation will probably need resources, probably need more people, probably need more financial input from the government so that they also, become harmonized with the world. Now, another transformation which is needed in India, because remember 4 types of products, the diagnostics, the companion diagnostics, and then you have 2 more products which are there. There has to be a regulatory inspection for the licensing purpose, and it has to have a quality to it. I'm sure many of you would agree with me. It's better that we don't talk about the way inspections used to happen couple of years ago. But now we know that for class A and class B, there is an external body who's coming to inspect your facility. However amount you want to fudge, you can still be getting caught. However amount you want to show more and more, they'll be pretty happy. There is much better inspections taking place as far as new licensing transformation is concerned. And I'm happy to also show you that class C and D manufacturing licenses are inspected by the CDSCO, central zone, headquarter zone, or the regional zones. And I have access to one of the reports, and I'm so surprised to see that I have seen those reports which are of 2 pages or 3 pages. First time I have seen an inspection report and the quality of inspection going up. And you can see that 17 pages have been filled in with specific information, good or bad, I'm not referring to. But what I'm very, very pleased to know is that there is a transformation taking place in the regulatory system where better reports are being generated. Better report generation means more and more compliances and more specific information shared between the regulator and the manufacturers. I'm sorry. So inspection quality improvement, I see from my perspective as a transformation into happening, and I would like to connect it with the TIDE concept. Okay. Another important thing when I look at the transformation into IVD segment is regulatory harmonization. When I say regulatory harmonization, I would say that all top regulatory systems like US FDA or Australia or Japan or EU or Brazil or India, there has to be much more harmonization so that the market gets increased. It should be harmonized in such a manner that today the products which are approved are not immediately acceptable in US FDA or in EU. There are much more requirements there. But any product which has been passed or registered in EU and in US, they are easily acceptable in India. The reasons are very clear. There are people who talk for and against it, but having been into a consultant into all the regulatory zones, I know that the work which is done for CE marking or for 510K submissions or the reviews which are done there or the informations which are submitted there are definitely a level higher. And more working into our own MDR 2017, which will harmonize these regulatory requirements. And the day will come, I'm very optimistic, a day will come when transformation will take place. Okay, the product is registered in India, it is acceptable, subjected to statutory registration of that product, no more testing required, no more reviews required. So those things are going to happen in due course of time. But this slide is also important. I have brought this slide again. Be it 510K, US FDA or EU requirements or Brazil requirements or any other government's requirements, there is a new focus. The new focus is once you launch a product, first of all kinds of products, whether it's a lab-based product or a companion diagnostics or SAMD, everything should be getting licensed. License means it has to undergo some process of document submission, some process of review, some process of discussion, some process of approval subjected to the risk category or the classification category. Based on that, once it goes into it, the requirement is higher the classification of a product, the more post-market surveillance would be required. More and more. Now, the new regulation which have come up in last 5 years, 2017 onwards till 2022, there has been a global stir in the regulation of IVD, particularly because of Indian MDR 2017, because it was all free for everyone before that. Now everything is under regulation. And then the new regulation IVDR 746, which has come from European Union, there is so much of requirements. And Indian MDR 2017 has adopted requirements from EU, requirements from other regulatory bodies, and they have brought into MDR 2017. But then nothing is perfect in one go. I'm sure more and more is happening, and with the involvement of EDMI and with the involvement of IMET, everyone is making their effort for simplification and harmonization of these standards, these regulations, and also making sure that there is no extra burden either on the industry or on the users. But fact of the matter remains that once a product has been launched, there is a larger responsibility on the distribution network, the manufacturer, the users, and to capture what is happening in post-market activities, whether the product claim made on safety and performance are meeting its requirement or not. That is the enhanced focus in the ever-evolving regulation. And second point in evolving regulation is that products are being pushed into higher classification. Okay, higher the classification, more the requirements in terms of regulation and other things. One important segment which I want to highlight to all of you is that once a sample is taken, it is collected, it is processed, and it is reported. Okay. Now, a good IVD product may die its own death if pre, during, and post-analytical errors are not controlled. Now, these errors are not in the domain of a manufacturer, other than the fact that they highlight that control these unwanted situations. But this is a segment where healthcare users, healthcare staff, the laboratories which use these samples, the laboratories which process these samples, the laboratories which generate these reports. A good product can go doomed if these pre, during, and post-analytical errors are not controlled. And I have heard from respectable doctors or pathologists in different conferences that such kind of errors can be up to the tune of 30 to 40%. Just imagine, that's huge. And TIDE speakers and TIDE group as a whole must also address that there is a very good consensus on these controls so that the quality and efficacy of diagnostic products is really harnessed. Coming to the closure of this presentation, what I'm making, I asked a question: did COVID-19 transform global IVD regulatory environment? I do not know whether the answer is yes or no, but I want to highlight that all COVID-19 products have been approved under emergency, be it therapeutic products, be it diagnostic products. When we say they're approved in emergency, please do not consider that you have understood and you have learned the regulatory requirements. These have been lesser than the breached regulation. To give you an example, that all the kits which were tested by ICMR in the name of ICMR validation, they have tested in the initial phase of testing, they did more of positive samples, less of negative samples. Whereas first fundamental principles of any IVD validation is you test at least 2 or 3 times the negative samples than the positive samples. You have to ensure that the specificity is high, unless there is a strong benefit risk ratio which says that, okay, specificity is less, but it is still helpful. Okay, so in this case, what happened? Because it was an emergency, nobody bothered what should be done in a correct manner or not. Do we get the minimum basic information? With that, things have been done. And if you top that up with analytical errors, you can imagine what's happening, be it rapid test or be it molecular test. So there is going to be a very, very specific controls required for the development of product. It definitely created a ripple. And the best advantage, which I have understood it, that there is a global regulatory awareness among public and the users that in India, many people say, oh, is it approved by CDSCO? People now, general people know there is a body called CDSCO, there is a body called DCGI. People ask this question, is it approved test? If not these two, they say, is it approved by ICMR? Of course, that's a separate level of confusion. ICMR is not a regulatory body. They're only a nodal testing body for many products in the country, and there should be no confusion about it. But yes, whatever has happened during COVID-19, that's separate. The next question I asked myself, did MDR 2017, that's Indian regulatory requirements, came up in 2018 implementation, then IVDR 746. Have they transformed or they're transforming IVD regulatory environment? My answer to this is yes. And if you want to become, if you have a good product, if you want to say you have a good product, if you see that it's going to go ahead, you want to take it global, please comply with all QMS and regulatory requirements. Then I would want all of you to see a very good document. When when Mr. Mahajan was speaking to me, and I've been just looking at it, what is the best concise information available? Are people working? Is global teams working on it? I got a beautiful paper from the Lancet Commission on Regulation on Diagnostics, Transforming Access to Diagnosis. A very apt title. And if you go through it, I would very strongly recommend that you all go through it. You will find how they have looked at 10 different aspects of transforming the diagnostics, be it patient-oriented, be it manufacturer orientation, regulatory orientation, government orientation, low-income group, middle-income group. This is an amazing paper, and I'm very impressed with the outcome of this paper. With this, I would like to rest my talk, and I would be happy to answer the questions. Thank you very much.
Dr. Gupta, thank you very much. You picked up a subject which is not everyone's cup of tea, or let me say, it is not most people's cup of tea. Okay, right? It has the tendency, because it is heavily documented, right? It's all about procedures. It's all about following the rule book, right? So it's something that not everybody gets, and like you said, a lot of things are open to interpretation. Multiple interpretations. So, I want to pick up some things that you spoke about. One, of course, that the government cannot control everything. And the reason you talked about doing what happened during the COVID pandemic, when fast track approvals were given, that was, of course, one, the lack of control, second, the lack of resources, and just too much happening. They couldn't afford to let it slide at that time, right? I know the test may not have been perfect, right? But having said that, better to have some test than no test at all. I think that was what the thought process was for ICMR and CDSCO.
Absolutely.
Right? If you look at it now, and I'm talking to you as somebody who is involved, who is working with the manufacturer, we have seen that now they have gone back to the highly detailed ways. One thing I wanted to ask you about, which you did not touch upon during your presentation, and because we're talking about regulations here, is ICMED. India's own answer. That is India's own answer to the CE regulations, if I'm not wrong.
Sure.
Right? It's the next level evolution after 13485, right? And it's a new system basically that says India can do this on our own, right? If I'm not wrong, please correct me if I'm wrong.
No, that's fine. That's right. That's absolutely right. And I know that India has been, yeah. You want to say something?
Yeah, how does it fit into today's setup with respect to regulatory guidelines?
Yeah. So that's a very nice thing which you highlighted, and I purposely did not bring that into today's presentation, is because ICMED is not yet approved by the regulation. ICMED is, as on today's stands, at a voluntary implementation. ICMED is also not accepted by the regulation, in fact, anywhere as of now. Yes, we are trying to build our own standard. Okay, it is really good and it is at par with any global requirements. I've seen it. I've trained people for it, and I also kind of tell people to go for it. But neither it is a regulatory requirement as of today, nor it fulfills the requirement of the CE marking or any other global regulation. It is voluntary, and I know it's been going on since 2012, because I think I attended its launch program in 2014 in Delhi. It's almost 10 years, and many more industry. I've received queries whether we want to go for it and other things, and some companies have received it also. It's taking much longer, and I really think that eventually it becomes fully aligned with MDR 2017 or any other things which our regulator find that is fully aligned with this. They accept it and they say, okay, if you go for it, this is it's one-step regulation. But that does not stand it that way as on today. But yes, it is voluntary, and if you really comply with all the requirements, if you're a CE mark company, why not get ICMED also? But again, there is a cost in every certification which you go for. There is a maintenance requirement for every certification which you go for. I've heard then that ICMED, MDSAP, and CE marking now also has a minimal acceptance of non-conformities. If you have more than this, you won't get it. Okay, so people will definitely, as a manufacturer, will think twice. Okay, if I can operate with 13485 and my MDR 2017 within my Indian purview, why do I go for a stricter one? It's voluntary. Okay, the more you do, the more you get highlighted globally, and more your products will sell better. I am for it. Let's see how fast it gets adopted in Indian scenario.
Thank you, sir. There is always, as regulatory guidelines evolve, just like the rule book evolves from a legal standpoint, these are the rule books that we follow when it comes to manufacturing or sale of medical equipment and devices. There are old rules and new rules, right? And sometimes the old rules don't change fast enough.
Yeah.
Right. So what do you think the government can do? How could they, in your opinion, since I'm aware you are an expert, second, you're also on a group with a lot of experts with respect to the WHO. So that much I am aware. So using your personal opinion here, how do you think the government can, circumvent that rather than get left behind?
That's a question which entire globe is asking today. Okay, like IVDR 746, it has been implemented in Europe. It requires a third-party intervention in the entire process. The total number of third parties approved by the EU is much lesser compared to the people who want to bring in their products. Availability is affected because of new regulation. But having said that, it's not the same bad scenario in Indian MDR 2017. Okay, it was implemented with limited number of categories from 1st January 2018. I have seen manufacturers asking extensions even on that. 5 years is not a small period. Okay, for any transition, for any industry segment. Of course, there are people give an argument that in between there were 2 years of COVID-19. Well, be it medical device industry or IVD industry, everyone did manufacturing in COVID-19. Why can't you comply with the given regulation? Right? If you can do manufacturing, you can also comply with the regulation, right? So I always say compliance to the regulation has more with the voluntary activities, and it's very intentional within, that I want to do this, and whether there is a guideline or not, there could be confusions, there could be operational issues. That is at manufacturers end also, that is at regulator end also. Okay, but these are not dead ends. There is always an opportunity to talk. There is always an opportunity to resolve and move forward, right? Any new regulation, any evolving regulation always gives you time. Okay, even now, October 1st, 2022, all class A and B products have come into regulation, irrespective of category. They've given you 2 years. If you don't wake up in 2 years, one has to think, what we are doing. My suggestion, therefore, in all my social media posts and everything, I always say, go for it. Running from it is not going to help you if you want to remain as an established, compliant player. There are 2 things which I always tell people. I produce 1,000 kits. I produce 1,000 kits with complete compliance are 2 different meanings.
Absolutely.
Okay? I would be going for second, and I always support the second. That's what, there is an intent behind it more than the requirement. That's what I always feel.
I get the exact line of what you're trying to make out here. One last question, and this is going to be something that is going to lead us into our next panelist. We have Dr. Vishal Gandhi coming in. Coming in next.
Yes.
Now he's going to be talking on tech startups. Now, tech startups are going to do a lot of work with respect to software, right? Software is the in thing. So how do you think, what are the kind of new rules we're looking at with respect to the SAMD, as in the software as medical devices?
There are 2 aspects to your question, Arjun. One is a startup. It itself is a question. Okay. Then is a SAMD. That itself is a question. So I have visited so many incubation centers in the last 2 years. I've spoken to so many startups. I've spoken to so many CEOs of startups. I've spoken to venture capitalists. Okay, my interaction has been pretty wide. Okay, it itself is a subject which can take 2-3 days of conversation. True. All right. Now the question is, even my wife is a scientist in ICMR. I tell them also that every single idea is not a product. Now people say, no, I have a product. Now, if you ask me as a manufacturer, a product, or you ask Mr. Jatin Mahajan, or you ask Mr. Rajiv Nath, a product is a product which brings revenue. You may have a terrific idea. If it cannot bring revenue, it is not a product. It is only a prototype. All right. Now, who decides in case of startup, which product has a potential to become a product? Okay, these two are two different words, you know, product and product with two different meanings. Okay, and I can tell you there is a huge gap in understanding whether each idea can get converted into a product. Then there are confusions. People don't read definitions. Medical Device Rules 2017 has 39 clear definitions. When I train people, when I talk to people, I try to ask them, did you read the definition? Hardly anyone reads it. You have a question whether my product meets the definition or not, but you will not read the definition. How will you decide? You talk of US regulation, you talk of CE marking regulation, it gives you a formula. It says you come to this first, decide, okay, you meet this, go to the next stage, go to the next stage, go to the next stage, and then decide whether you really have a medical device. Okay, then you think about the regulation. Same goes for SAMD. Okay, there are many people who think they have a software as a medical device, but they truly don't have one. Okay, I come across many. In fact, I received a query from a Canadian person who said, we have got an SAMD. I said, fine, give me a demonstration. He said, you give us a code. I said, I cannot give you a code until I know a product. So please show me what a product is. When they showed it to me, I was upfront in saying it is not a medical device. It was a software. I said, it is only data management, right? So question is, if you have SAMD as a product, it will have a sensitivity requirement. It will not probably have a linearity requirement, or it may not probably have a, a couple of other requirements, but still it will talk about sensitivity. It will have an intended use by which it say it diagnoses this, right? And then it is tested against a gold reference standard. The data will say, apart from your intended use, whether it fits to be SAMD. Most softwares are either SIMD or just a data management. So definition has to be applied appropriately to call it SAMD, and then the work has to be done. I also want to bring one caution here. Many of the startups, they do a very small testing and they call it clinical validation. It's a total misunderstanding. It's an absolute total, I would say it's an absolute misunderstanding. What is a product validation? What is a product verification? If you are not clear about it, just don't fit everything into validation basket, because you do not go to the next step. And then you say regulation is bad, then you say system is bad, then you say this is bad, that is bad. It doesn't work out. So understanding QMS, understanding regulation should be first thing to do for any startup who wants to get into a medtech. And they should. I very, very like, I like it so much when Rajivji says he went to the floor. He sat down with his QC guy, he sat down with his QA guy, right? He sat down with his regulatory guy. Today, anyone in the industry who comes and tells him anything, he will give a smile and he will understand, oh, whether you're saying right or wrong, right? That has to be done by every person who claims to have a technology.
Well, let's stop it at that, because this is a never-ending discussion.
Absolutely.
And, while I completely agree with what you said about SAMD and how you define the product, right? I also keep, I'll put just one food for thought here, that times are changing, right? There are old systems and there are new systems. What worked 20 years ago for my parents doesn't work for me. It won't work for my children, right? So the rules, like you said, define a product, those rules will eventually be rewritten.
Yes. Yes,
those rules will be rewritten. So from becoming we are a generation which has gone from cooking at home to Zomato and Swiggy. So I believe the healthcare sector is also going through a transformation.
Yeah.
So we will come out with new norms, new regulations, and new ways to define the word product also eventually.
Absolutely.
So, with that open mind,
I think, Arjun, there is a question in question answer session, question answer box. Somebody is asking
about, I think it was about a simple question about linearity, because
yes,
more about that's a general tech question about how the products, any product would work, right?
True.
So
just to answer this question, that linearity is a function through which you decide how appropriately your test results will come up to what concentration of a product, and whether you get a straight line or whether you get a S curve or what kind of a curve you get, because that decides the R square value. Higher the R square value, better is the reliability of the test. Okay, so it's mostly done for quantitative products, which can be ELISA, okay, mostly, or it can be other immunoassays where you get quantitative values. Linearity becomes very difficult to assign for qualitative products. There, the linearity is decided in terms of dilution checking, which dilution a product gets count off. Okay, but that's not quantitative. But this can really be understood by specific reading on the linearity subject. Just Google it, you have enough information.
Thank you, Dr. Gupta. Thank
You're
you very
welcome.
much. Thank you for your time. And as a small token of our appreciation, a digital certificate.
Thank you very much.
We'll get the hard copy sent to you very shortly.
Thank you.
Thank you for your time, sir. Very insightful. Right. That takes us, ladies and gentlemen, that was Dr. Sanjeev Kumar Gupta speaking on regulations, past, present, and the future. Right. I think we had slated his talk for the end of the session, but I'm happy he did it now because it leads us with a lot of questions from Dr. Gandhi, and given that he is going to be talking about tech startups, right? Startups are driving the healthcare sectors, whether the innovations in medical goods, services, and they're leading the change as they drive economic growth. Now, to help you understand the nuances of supportive ecosystems for startups, two big words in their own way, we have Mr. Vishal Gandhi, founder and CEO of BioRx Venture Advisors, also chief ideator at the Indian Healthcare Angels. And he's one of the very first, he's got over 2 decades of experience as a healthcare investment banker, if I'm not wrong, right? We look forward to the points from you, Mr. Gandhi. Over to you.
So thank you, Arjun, for the wonderful introduction, and good evening, everyone. At the outset, I want to thank J.Mitra and Associates for inviting me to this meeting, and especially Jatinji for trusting us with this heavy topic of startups, because this is very close to me. But I can tell you that the world in startup is so dynamic, and of course, I had an opportunity to listen to Dr. Gupta, and I must say, and I must thank him to make my job very easy, because I didn't want to talk about some of those things which are very crucial to set the context. But I think regulation is something what he wonderfully covered, and I feel I'm going to talk about what are the other pillars which are very important to define the paradigm shift that we are seeing in diagnostic sector, right? Like 20 years back, we were looking at diagnostics as only IVD, like diagnostics is equal to IVD. But today, diagnostics has seen sea change, and I was actually looking at doing a small research before I'm with you, and I was trying to look at how many deals in this sector have happened wherein equity investors have invested, and looking at that, like if you look at, there are about 200 deals in last 20 years in diagnostic sector, and as low as $0.5 million to about, like say it, and can be as high as $100 million buyout deal, and we all are aware of. But yet the Indian diagnostic segment is so fragmented that 20 years back, when I was looking at research that how much is the unorganized market, it was 80-20. And today also, I think we still remain at the same number, maybe inch here and there. So I think look at the scope of diagnostics, and let's not look at diagnostic as only the in vitro diagnostic piece, because, when I share with you, and pardon me, I don't have a presentation, but what I have is an Excel sheet for you to really look at, because what I have been given to understand by that Jatinji is that, like a lot of you are startups, a lot of you are established companies, but it's very good for you to get to know, incremental views, because Dr. Gupta has done wonderful job that I am tempted to actually ask him to share a slide deck with me for me to be able to actually polish my understanding on the regulation side, and which is very, very crucial. And I must say that the government support to the diagnostic ecosystem in last 20 years has been phenomenal. And I can start with my own experience. I did my master's in biotechnology from University of Hyderabad, and my first job was at Dabur, and there I was actually given a task to start a company called OnQuest. It was my first entrepreneurial job, and In fact, I would say that was a time when I was looking at molecular diagnostics. I came across this word molecular diagnostic in 2001. And of course, I was part of Dabur Research Foundation. There I got fundamentally a great support to start OnQuest. But the thing was that we wanted to pick up cancer early. We wanted to see what can we do, and I think part of that biotech based probes, which is DNA, RNA, has also been captured by Sanjeev ji. So I'm going to dwell on that particular piece, that if you pick up the disease early on, and how your therapeutic interventions, prognosis could be better, and your overall economic cost of healthcare management at an individual level, or at a government level, or at a primary healthcare level, or at a secondary level, or tertiary level, how it can actually be economized, so I think diagnostics really plays an important role. And if you don't get the diagnostic right, then the entire healthcare management goes for a toss. That's the importance. And I think when I was working with when I was working with Dabur Research Foundation, at the same time, I also was looking at J.Mitra as a company, as a prospective employer for me. So Jatinji may not know, but like that time in Delhi, if you were to work with companies, I think there will be only very few companies that you could work, either with Dabur Research Foundation or with J.Mitra or Panacea Biotech or maybe Ranbaxy. And now I can talk about my movement from starting a diagnostic company, which under Dabur umbrella was OnQuest. Wonderful experience. This was a cancer specific diagnostic company, and we could launch this in front of about 100 oncologists, and a lot of oncologists actually needed this support, and I'm sure all of you know about the importance of molecular diagnostic. Most of us were not aware about, but now I think we all know by advent of COVID that entire COVID testing was on RT-PCR platform. And RT-PCR platform was something that we harnessed 20 years back for the diagnostic of early stage cancers, right? It could be leukemias to any other cancers. Coming to now, next wave was in 2002, as a genomic scientist, I got an opportunity to start a first microarray genomics platform lab in Ranbaxy Research Laboratories. And there was first private microarray lab. And that time, people didn't even think about how genomics is going to play a role. Today people are talking about precision medicine, but today I think genomics has actually become part of everybody's life, right? None of us focused on wellness as a segment, right? Everything in India till very recently was a sick care management, right? And all of us know that we are actually managing people who are sick. We are not managing people from a health and health ease perspective, right? Like we should think about a system wherein we are not even getting there. We are actually becoming, not liability to the entire ecosystem, but we rather become an asset, and only way for us to progress and increase our GDP contribution is when you and I are healthy, and it's only when you and I can take care of ourselves. And how does that happen? That happens by the way of genomics, and genomics is an underlying science for you to tell you that what are you predisposed to, right? So today, nutrition as a science has evolved so much. We never heard the importance of nutraceutical 5, 7, 10 years back. But today, all of us at this age, who are well-informed people, we are all popping nutraceutical because we believe that it's important, right? To not manifest all those diseases which generally would otherwise manifest. How do we use genomic test, to actually plan our, redressal of those diseases so that it do not show up? So there is a lot of evidence today, scientific-based evidence, which exists today, which says that if you take care of nutrition, you actually can take care of your life well, and what you do at 40 will guide how long will you live. So I think even if you are 30, 40, 50, please take care of your health. Government will do its bit, but I think we all have to take care of our health. Very, very important. And as a learned, I would say professionals, all of you who are attending this meeting today, I think we must pledge that we should not become liability to the government. We must actually become asset to the government. And that will only happen when the DNA of diagnostic is right. People spend only 1 rupee out of 100 rupees which is spent in a hospital on diagnostics. But if you don't get the diagnostic right, that 99 rupees is going to be waste. So I think that is the importance from an overall cost economic perspective. And diagnostic is see change, In fact, sometimes it's very difficult for me also to keep abreast of it. But, since we are in a field of investments, we help companies to raise capital, merger acquisition, and this segment is really, really fragmented, whether you talk of diagnostic players, whether you talk of IVD kits, whether you talk of software, whether you talk of digital health, whether you talk of many more things which have come. And I'm going to actually share with you, there are about 20 plus categories of diagnostic people never thought about. And I think a very wonderful tone set by Dr. Gupta already that, medical device diagnostics, like people are debating about it. Is it a medical device? In what respect it is, right? So you're going to be seeing what I'm going to share from the lens of the overall opportunities in which the startup ecosystem is today playing, and what is attracting investment, what is not attracting investment. And I must share with you, the government has really played a very, very crucial role, and I have had small role to play from 2005 onwards. I was part of BIRAC. When BIRAC actually didn't exist as BIRAC, it existed as a SBRI, and had a good fortune to work with Minister Kapil Sibal, then Dr. Bhan, and we started this program called SBRI, and I was part of Yes Bank at that time, and we started doing due diligence. We realized that there's no finance due diligence that you can conduct on such companies. It's only technical due diligence, and that's where we need people like Dr. Gupta, who can actually pick up early on whether this technology actually has the ability to reach the market. Because it's very easy to fund anybody, right? Like, it's not about funding. Funding is not a rocket science. But what is key is to actually ensure that you get an exit. And when will you get an exit? When you see the light of the day, when you see the product in the marketplace. And I can share with you, that let's say if there are 100 plus such projects, in diagnostics which are funded, 80% were actually not even economically feasible, and they were not technically feasible. And that's when, government supported them, but they were never by design, they were never technically or economically feasible, and they should not have been advanced at first go. I think that is very crucial, and I can share with you with a lot of confidence today, because when you review all these companies which got funding from the government as a seed support, and literally they don't have any product. Even if they have a product, what is the market share today they have? Like hardly 1%, 2%. Is that the impact that government was looking for? Or is that the impact that a founder like, a fund, somebody who's trying to disrupt the diagnostic should be looking for? No, because that's anyway, you can simply buy something from China, you can still contribute 1%, 2%, 3%. If we are looking for 1 to 3%, and if we're looking for a linear equation impact, I think we don't need to do innovation, right? Innovation is required, what is called disruption. And if we cannot disrupt, I think there is absolutely no reason for us to unnecessarily ask government to fund us or any other, investors to fund us. I think it's important that this has to be novelty, and people starting putting patents left and right, thinking that it will become, all that. So if you do deep dive of last 20 years, I think founders today who are looking to start diagnostic business must look at what went wrong, and if you don't learn from there, I'm telling you, we will continue to work on this. But at the end of the day, please realize your diagnostic startup is a crucial startup. It's the starting point. It's the cause of healthcare management. And if you don't get it right, then, the impact can never be created. So don't underestimate what you're doing. It's very, very important. Whether you're in precision medicine, whether you're in pharmacogenomics, or you're in genomics, or whether you are in molecular diagnostics, I'm going to talk about these because I've worked very closely on these technologies for about 20 plus years, supported companies on financing on these lines, and I've been a technical guy myself. So I have realized that, if we don't get the feasibility right, it's better not to even launch the product. Sir, Dr. Gupta can actually throw more light on it, but there are about 20 plus companies which would have developed a product, but they never got regulatory approval, which means that they never deserve to be actually funded at first place. We must do this correction. And I had gone back to the, my various ministries saying that, we shouldn't be doing that. If something is not even clear in regulatory, and at least in the biotech sector, where I come from, I have seen that government did not even have a regulation. Innovation is happening, but there is no sight when innovation is happening, whether regulators will ever allow that or not. And we have seen enough in agriculture biotechnology. Today, agriculture biotechnology, has not seen the light of the day because regulators just couldn't think about how to monitor the performance, of such crops, and as a result, they never cleared the GMOs, right? We all know about GMO, we know all about potential of the GMO, but it could never see the light of the day in India, right? We got stuck with GM cotton, that's about it, nothing else. And that also is now, kind of waded off, right? So I think coming back to the diagnostics, let's do a little bit of deep dive. And in last about 1.5 years or 2 years, you can say, since pandemic started, they were about 50 to 70 deals that you would have seen, and it's important for all of you to know what's happening in industry when you are actually trying to start your business in that direction, because it's very, very important to have that kind of a strategic intelligence before you start. So if you see on the A column, right, there are companies which are like big companies, starting from Divanchand Medical Services. Now Divanchand Medical Services was a very interesting company, and they got acquired by Dabur family, and I was also partly responsible for that. So some of the buyouts you have seen, and then of course there's a very interesting company called Rivera Labs. I'm sure you're all aware about. You've seen company called Orange Health, Redcliffe, Dozy, MedPrime, all these companies, Base Care, all these companies are actually diagnostic companies, right? But look at the business model, so differentiated business model. You see diagnostics for dental labs. You see a category of diagnostics for COVID testing. So gone are those days where people are only talking about diagnostics. People are now talking about disease level diagnostics, where one can use the power of various technologies to address particular therapeutic area, or particular, organ, So if you see that, people are talking of in-home diagnostics, there is huge POC happening. Like today, a lot of CSR programs in tier 3, tier 4 are nothing but POC, right? Point of care, which did not exist. Now there's a new concept of in diagnostics which is coming up. There's a lot of innovation happening on microscopy. There's a lot of innovation happening on radiology, which is basically backed by AI. There's a lot of innovation happening on oncology, because I think 20 years back where we stood, diagnosing a right kind of a subtype of a cancer is still, I think, a big challenge today also, right? So it's very important to actually keep discovering and keep researching on how to diagnose cancer, and that to a subtype of a cancer much early on than otherwise, because if you can diagnose cancer early on, then I think the therapy management also becomes very, very controlled, right? And so look at the categories. You have categories like, now people are talking about enterprise softwares, people are talking of digital therapeutics. What is digital therapy? Digital is nothing but diagnostics, right? We have seen all insulin pump, right? How does insulin pump becomes actually a useful product unless it does not diagnose, it does not give a feedback, right? When is the sugar going up or when is the sugar going down, right? So I think we need to see things from a monitoring perspective. Now monitoring, remote patient monitoring is nothing but diagnostics. We could never think that this is a part of a diagnostic, but actually today has become diagnostic because digital health has enabled us to do that. Then there are a lot of online marketplaces, which I'm not going to dwell with. It's not very something unique about it. It's just an aggregation. But look at, you have handheld devices which are measuring or doing a POC for breast cancer to any other cancer. So look at the kind of deals that you have seen. I hope you can see my screen. Mr. Arun, can you see my screen? Because I'm actually...
I can
This
see
is clear.
it,
This is
but,
clear.
if you could zoom in a little more, it would give a little better perspective, because some viewers may not have a full laptop access right now.
Oh, all right. So let me see if I can zoom in. What can I do?
Just click
Actually,
here.
I'm doing it from the. Okay, let me go to.
Just go to the bottom right hand corner. Go to the bottom right hand corner on this particular thing. You can just increase this. Go down a little bit. Let me show you. Hold on.
Okay, so I am operating Mac, and in that sometimes there's always a challenge. Features are a little different.
Yeah, features are.
Okay, so the idea is I'm trying to share with you that let's not only talk about diagnostics like in vitro diagnostics. There is a within diagnostic, there's a huge research which has happened, and people are actually getting funded, and this is going to be defining the diagnostics in 2030. When you see diagnostic in 2030, you may not really need CT scan. You may not need like MRIs machines. You will need sophisticated machines. In vitro diagnostics will be be seeing in a very different space altogether. I'm sure Jatinji and Arun, you will have a better perspective on that, but I'm sure there will also be a rebooting of IVD market, considering that a lot of things are going for in-home diagnostic, whereas in vitro diagnostic has also been associated with a lot of machinery. Today, people are talking about going everything without machinery, like a lot of apps are there which can actually diagnose whether what kind of anemia are you suffering from, what is the level of anemia. So huge amount of research going on. So your mobile phone will actually become a machine itself. You don't need any hardware, you just need to work on the software and you're done with it. And I think there's a huge amount of funding which is going on, and it is addressing the particular organ. So coming to early stage deals, if you look at in diagnostic space in last 20 years, so there are about 3 buyout deals which have happened. There are 77 early deals, and these early deals, 77 are potential ideas. You can say that there are 77 potential ideas that can change the face of the diagnostics industry going forward. There are 60 growth companies which are already in process of embracing the growth and by actually rejigging the business model. There are 10 late stage companies which received funding. And of course, we all know that till about 3 years back, there was no diagnostic company with an IPO. But today, it's the diagnostic companies which are actually recognized for their wonderful work rewarding shareholders, right? You have Metropolis, you have Dr. Lal Path, and of course Thyrocare got reverse merged with the pharmacy. So if you look at this is the kind of revolution we have seen in last 10 years, but further acceleration in this revolution will continue. And I think the base is already there because they have all been funded. Some of them may be successful, some of them may not be successful, but definitely I'm sure Dr. Gupta can also put some light on it. But I do feel that we are going to be seeing a transformation in diagnostics, and we are going to be doing a lot of in-home diagnostics then dependent upon only laboratory diagnostics, right? And then our other, I think this is what I wanted to cover, Arun, because I felt whatever Dr. Gupta has covered was a very good, tone and context. And I wanted to cover only the funding piece because which is what I actually look at. I spend my all energies in helping companies for mobilization of funding from late stage to even like early stage to whatever, whichever stage they are at, helping them with the perfect business model. Then I think regulation is certainly something which is very, very important. And I think people like Dr. Gupta has played a good role, but I think Dr. Gupta, your role is certainly going to be much more critical because finance is something very easily available. There's a lot of finance available chasing good ideas, right? But I think only few ideas are worth pursuing from a regulation point of view. And if you don't do what is called regulatory due diligence in the beginning, all that money is going to go to the drain, and we have seen it, and so I think you need to clone. You need to have more people like with your expertise, because people like our expertise certainly are abundant in here. But regulatory, I think whether it's about medical device or whether it's about pharmaceuticals, biotech, diagnostic, I think we need good understanding of regulation, and we just cannot follow the simple copycat mechanism what US FDA does or CE does. I think we need to have our own evolving ecosystem because innovation is happening. And trust me, innovation, what is happening in IIT Delhi or IIT Mumbai, they don't see a light of the day because people like Dr. Gupta or like people like us, who are not actually part of the early decision making. And early decision making happens by the technical people, and they're so married to their idea, right? I've been myself a pro now. I teach a lot of management technology stuff and all that. But I feel that when you interact with professors, they're so married with the idea, they just can't think anything beyond, that research aspect, which is not very conducive for an entrepreneur, right? And most of these entrepreneurs are mentored early on only by the professors. And so this technically becomes like a subsidiary of professorship. And this is where we see a lot of ideas getting failed. A lot of ideas some of the ideas deserve funding, they don't get it. Some of the ideas never deserve funding, they get it. So I think there's a lot of mismatch, and this is what I wanted to share. I'm sure Dr. Gupta may have some exciting things to share further. Please go ahead, Dr. Gupta.
We both do actually. Yeah, Dr. Gupta, over to you, sir.
Thanks, Vishal. I think in last 2.5 years, first time I'm hearing something which I want to hear from somebody who's been involved with startups. Okay.
Thank you, sir.
I would just share, I have been talking to Mr. Manish Diwan, not directly, a little bit less, and I've been
This could be towards their preparedness, right?
Yes.
Had we not funded, they would have been silent.
Yeah. One important message, since you're connected to too many people, you spoke something very good, that every project must be looked for regulatory successfulness or regulatory strategy before it is funded. Or even if it is funded, it's going ahead, it should again be reviewed whether it has potential to go ahead or not, so that the focus of the government can become more specific. Whichever looks potential, more focus can be given. And I really agree with you that if you make a product which is only going to sell 50 lakhs a year or 1 crore a year, it is not bringing any transformation in the diagnostic sector. It is not. Right? These are very valid points which you raised, and I'm very, very happy to listen first time from somebody about these issues. Thank you so much.
In the interest of time, I did have a couple of questions, Mr. Gandhi, and we also have Dr. Vikas Sharma waiting for us as the last speaker of the day. Your subject actually is such that we could take up an entire conclave on this, right? Yes. To be very honest. And India has become a hub of startups. In fact, we are the 3rd largest startup ecosystem in the world today with over 107 unicorns. But since you're in line with this sector, how many of those 107 unicorns are healthcare unicorns? That's my question. Because whenever I talk to healthcare startup founders, they have great ideas, but not the roadmap. They don't have the correct roadmap. They don't have the correct thing of how they are going to actually disrupt it. In your words, you'd call it disruption. In my words, I call it make money. right? Right. We're not running a, there is time for social, for corporate social responsibility, and there is time to make a startup profitable. So where do you see what's the future for the next 5 years? Just your outlook on the startup ecosystem in India. Where do you see us going?
So thank you, Arjun, for the wonderful question. And I was asked the same question 5 days back, and I will try to address it to an extent possible. I may not have the perfect answer. So today, if you look at healthcare, unicorns in India, and we don't have anybody from diagnostics. That's one. Which is unfortunate, considering that diagnostic is the cause for healthcare management. And I think today's discussion and this panel must come up with one recommendation saying that how do we create or how do we engineer one unicorn in diagnostics so that when we discuss in TIDE 2023, we actually have one unicorn coming out of such discussions with everybody's help, right? It's not just one person's role, but I think Jatinji's, vision, and we have a wonderful mentor like Dr. Gupta, and of course we can play a small role in that. But I think it's time for us to actually think and engineer one unicorn. Otherwise, we are not going to get there. Okay. So now coming to the current state of unicorns in healthcare, if you look at the companies like Medica Bazaar or companies like, KPOs, BPOs, all those are like Innovator, all that like addressing the needs like a KPO, BPO, like it's not really something a great value addition. There's no innovation per se. It's more of a service delivery system, right? Yeah. So there's no innovation. So, so truly speaking, if you want to base everything on unicorn only on numbers, I think it's more of a exaggerated term, but in real term, I would say that we need to have innovation-based unicorn. And if you ask me that, we don't have anyone in India yet. Because having a marketplace is nothing but an innovation in IT. It's not an innovation in healthcare, right? Right?
Yes,
but I think that's an important
healthcare
aspect. But I think we need to have on-ground innovation in diagnostics. And I can tell you and truly relate to what Dr. Gupta shared, because I also been reviewing a lot of proposals and now that I also stopped reviewing them because it's very difficult for me to justify anything, right? Like whether I say no or yes, and it's better to be silent, right? But I think we must define that. And I think that way, you guys have a great responsibility, Arjun and Jatin ji, to see that how you can seed unicorns of diagnostic under J.Mitra. And I think that is where, your GTM, what is called go to market, is so strong. You already have that know-how. You are exporting products globally, and that unicorn will not come because there's just an innovation disruption. Unicorn will come when there's a market access, and you need to have players like you to be able to align with such innovations and take them to the market quickly and make that product as a global product. And that is what's going to happen when you want to engineer a unicorn. We actually this is what Arjun I wanted to share, but I'm not sure whether I'm right or wrong.
And Dr. Gupta, and have a discussion, because everything has to tie up together, right? We have launched products in the market, and I've seen how the challenges that have come in the Indian market, right? Because the Indian market is it's a very fertile ground. It's very fertile, but creating disruptions in the Indian market is also not an easy thing, because the established mindsets of the Indian user, the end user, right? As Dr. Vikas Sharma is here, he will tell us going forward how, one part of the change is what he's going to talk about, of how things are going to be going forward. One part is doing, like you said, getting the right idea on board. Every idea is good, but not every idea is great. In fact, it's 1 out of 100 that really makes it work. And putting your money where your due diligence is, that's what's important, right? So I've seen startup founders who do not have the requisite groundwork, the milestone planning. They don't have a time to market. They say, hey, it's a great idea. I think it will work. But that's not how the real world works, right, Mr. Gandhi?
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely.
So, all right. I think we are running short of little time. I will connect with you afterwards. I'll get your details from Jatinji. Right, but this is an interesting topic. We'll take that forward. Thank you so much, Mr. Gandhi, for joining us. And as a small token of our appreciation, we have a digital certificate, because we want to disrupt the real world certificate industry.
Absolutely. And more socially responsible, sustainable, paperless, right?
Yeah. Thank you for your time and lovely
Good.
inputs. The idea is not sometimes to solve the problem. The idea is to conceptualize the ideas into people's head. Seeding is as important as feeding, right?
Yeah, and thank you for asking that wonderful question, because now I'm setting the thing and I'm going to come back to Jatinji how to make that unicorn in diagnostic happen. So thank you for seeding that. Thank you, Dr. Gupta, for being so patient listening to me, and thank you
He was
everyone.
very excited listening to you. I can guarantee you that.
Thank you so much. Thank you everyone. Thank you audience.
Thank you very much.
Okay, bye-bye.
Thank you, Mr. Gandhi. That was very insightful and a look at the future. Our next speaker is Mr. Vikas Sharma, Chief Business Officer of Lifestyle International. His focus, of course, is on the democratization, or let me calling it the freeing up of preventive health tests or self-tests as we know them. That's the future. It's a fast-growing segment, and a lot of people are adopting home tests versus going to the labs. So let's go forward, and Sharmaji, over to you, sir.
Thank you so much, Surgeon. I hope I'm audible.
Loud and clear.
Great. So first of all, I would like to thank the organizers, particularly Mr. Jatin, Mr. Arjun, and of course, my dear friend, Mr. Raj Sehgal, who spoke to me a few days back to be onboarded for this particular topic and on this wonderful platform, Tide. A great initiative, I would say. And I said, yeah, with all the stalwarts around, if I can also add some value out of my experience to this topic, I'd be happy to do that. So, in fact, I have a 28 years career, which is divided almost equally into pharma and diagnostics industry. I have been working with various pharma companies at a time when, of course, the doctor's prescription in the 90s and the early 2000s used to guide everything right from the testing, the diagnostics to the drug requirement. And then slowly over the years, when even I started in the diagnostic sector, it was still a time around 2008 when the master was always the prescription. It still is in many of the areas related to healthcare. But over the years, I think a transition certainly has happened, which has given some amount of empowerment to the individual to take care of the health, his own health or her own health. And in fact, before me, Dr. Gandhi, as he was, he also briefly mentioned about the sickness versus wellness part. So I think if we are not talking about the wellness part, and which is almost 80-85% of the population, and only talking about maybe 10-15% of the sickness part, we may not be even doing justice to the overall healthcare need as well as the overall assessment of the health of the individuals or the citizens. So if you can allow me, should I put up my PPT or?
Yes, please go ahead. I've given you the sharing rights.
Yeah. Can you see my screen?
Not yet. I can see you on screen, but you need to share your screen with the green button at the bottom of your Zoom link.
That's what I'm doing. Wait a minute. I'm trying to share my desktop itself.
Sometimes it doesn't share the desktop. If you have a PPT, you could open the PPT, then click on the share link. It will give you options. You can click on the.
I have opened.
You can click on the link to that.
Wait a minute. So I opened my PPT. Even I am operating from a Mac. So
no worry, I'm operating on a Mac here, so I'll guide you through it.
So I have opened the PPT now, and
right. Okay, now come back to your Zoom link, Zoom screen, and click on share screen.
on the air screen.
Share screen. When you click the green button of the share screen, it gives you options. So one of the options will be the PPT.
Still giving us system preferences. Is there a way somebody can project my PPT?
I can, if you can just simply email it to me.
Same has been sent to Mr.
Yeah, just one second.
Jatin
If
in
you
the
send
morning.
it, Sehgal sir, I think I must have got it here. Hold one second.
Yes,
Hold on one second.
please.
Share from your
please.
screen.
Yeah, there's always a way to solve this.
Yeah.
1 second. Yes, I have it here.
Yeah.
So there is no problem at all. All you have to do is tell me next and I will shift the screen, right?
Thanks.
Hold on a second.
Great. Thank you.
1 second, sir. Just a second. Yeah. No stress at all. Yeah, all right. Just tell me
Great. Thanks
next
a
what you want me to shift. Yeah.
Right. So, as you've already shared, the topic is about democratization of preventive health tests. Is it a good or a bad idea? So, frankly, as I was saying, the whole crux of democratization of preventive testing lies in our country's whole ecosystem in terms of health and the kind of involvement of diseases that we have currently in India. Next. So if you go to the National Health Portal, and this is exactly from where I've taken up these numbers. So according to the World Health Organization projections, the total annual number of deaths from the non-communicable diseases will increase to 55 million by 2030 if the timely interventions are not done. And if you can see, this is almost the population of many countries, what we are talking about here in terms of 55 million by 2030. So India is seeing a huge burden of non-communicable diseases. And of course, with each adding year, and these are the numbers which are known, there are many unknown numbers which are never getting tested in the Indian healthcare system. Next. So if you go to the same site, in response to the WHO Global Action Plan for Preventive and Control of NCDs 2013-20, India is the first country to adopt a national action plan with specific national targets of reducing the global premature deaths of NCDs by 25% by the year 2025. Now, there are 3 questions. Can governments do this only through limited healthcare resources that are at their disposal? Can this be achieved without a large-scale preventive health checkup model, especially for the non-communicable diseases? And can this be achieved without involvement of enablers in testing for NCDs? Probably the answer is no, because for such a huge population, there has to be a combination of availability of testing, whether it is preventive or it's even monitoring. Second is how to utilize that information. How are you going to use that information to your use as well as for the healthcare practitioner? And what are the other enablers in addition to the testing which are required to actually make sense of data and help control the growth of NCDs or at least maintain the progression of the non-communicable diseases? Next. So if we look at obviously it's a big public health challenge for India because NCDs pose a major risk for public health in this century. And the effects they can inflict on the socio-economic development, we are all aware, are huge, which is tremendous for this country. The prevention of diseases as well as early detection can be done only with a larger population getting access to choose what they get serviced for, especially on the preventive health checks, whether it is pathology or radiology, or even as I go forward, I'll be talking about the other enablers that are there. India, you all would agree, is already on a highway to becoming the diabetes capital of the world. We are just behind China now, but of course there are many, as I said, many undiagnosed cases. So that of course is a reason to believe that we need a very, very regular, correct testing mechanism over a period of time, which is inseparable from the management of the non-communicable diseases, because this is one of the biggest population hazard that we are currently facing in healthcare. Next. So I would also talk about a paradigm shift which has helped, especially the post-COVID era, where the natural order of disease detection is now shifting. People today are now opting for so many testing options. There are devices, there are apps, everything in the consumer space, which are destined to become an integral component of the doctor-patient conversations. There are plethora of healthcare management and self-help programs, right from diabetes reversal to weight management, or even a kidney care program, which are now available through various tech platforms, applications, which include even the free doctor consults, which also nudge the individuals to go for a preventive health checkup or preventive testing at a regular interval. And you see, this is the kind of paradigm shift which is really not, I mean, it's not only happening in the bigger cities or the metropolitan cities, but it's also happening in class B and class C cities, where people are now at least getting aware about the health needs, the need to have a regular health checkup, and the need to also make sense of that data while discussing with the healthcare professional. Next. Well, so what is happening is that the virtual diagnosis outside the traditional brick and mortar model of a clinic is now started taking place. There's no more waiting for a clinic visit for diagnosis. Patients are coming with a diagnosis in hand in many cases, and the chances that many of them are coming with an increasingly correct diagnosis based on the preventive health checkups. That is something which many clinicians are now obviously seeing these patients who are coming up with these kind of healthcare tests. And I would say it's a good trend, because this helps the clinician also get a little bit of extra insight into the overall health of this individual who is reporting into a healthcare center or a clinic. Next. So no, this is the part I'm talking about, not only testing, it has to be combined with the enablers. So when we talk about enablers, I think what has taken the world by storm is the mobile apps, which are available in plenty now. They help with the health assessment, allow individuals to get important information regarding their own health in a systematic and time-bound manner. Today, mobile phone technology helps obtain all available options for testing, to get the test results, obtain notifications and reminders, which is extremely important. Getting reminders and notifications about your health need or about a test need is extremely important in our busy routines, because this helps us understand our health status and actually makes us act towards a preventive healthcare check. Also, this data can be combined into dashboards. I have seen many platforms now which give a overall dashboard of the health, especially on the kind of disease area that one is registered for, and updates every time the new parameters are added to the through testing, and thus health keeps a complete health profile, which is a regular update for the individual, which is in fact a very good use of technology. And I would say many of us in our busy schedule, even knowingly, we know that there is a need for a health check or we need to go at a regular interval. Until and unless some technology intervention nudges us to go for that, we really do not go for it. But with the help of these enablers, these apps and these platforms, I think that's one clear change which is taking us towards democratization of not only health tests, but also the utilization of output of health tests towards a larger picture of our health. That's extremely important part which is currently happening. Next. Now, even the devices which are available with sensors, they bring new context to the symptoms and unveil many times new insights into the health of the individual. And these platforms promote new opportunities in patient education also, which is the key to prevention or to stop the progression of the disease. Because over the years, when you see most of the clinicians don't have time to devote towards the patient education, But and earlier, I know there used to be patient educators at some point of time, even pharma companies. I was with Dr. Reddy's for some time, and there also we had introduced this concept of patient educators for diabetes, which was again very human intervention dependent. But now with the access of all the available technology apps, now this patient education is taking place on the go. In the simple mobile that you are carrying in your hand, you're getting a lot of extra insight into how to manage your disease, or how to take care of your health needs in terms of nutrition, in terms of other do's and don'ts that you need to access. So I think that is another part of the paradigm shift for democratization of health tests, which is happening, which is making a lot of sense to a lot of younger generation as well as older generation. To some extent has also started adopting, whether it's through their friends, but that is also slowly started happening now. Next. So since I've been talking about the enablers on the path to democratization, the individuals can get consult to sample pickup today from the comfort of their homes in their busy schedule. So whether it is appointment for a consult, to a test, to a scan, or to a delivery of a medicine. So all this is getting built up into the whole healthcare platform system. And all of us today have a variety to pick and choose from the many options that are available for testing for us, because many of us don't take time out to go to a healthcare professional every time. But this gives us power in our hands as individuals to choose and pick what we want to pick about our health. Also, even for the thorough yearly checkups, the current testing facilities are offered by a range of service providers, which ensure that the individual is not only doing it at a regular interval, but in some cases on a yearly health checkup based on the age, the kind of risk factors a person has. So there is a schedule which is there, and the person or the individual sticks to that schedule and goes for the yearly health checkup. So this is extremely important, because democratization is not only about being able to give your test or select a test, but also how you are arriving at the best possible testing that you need to do in terms of what parameters you need to cover, at what intervals you need to cover, and then put it all in the form of a dashboard for your own health. And of course, there are many smart reports today available from various service providers. Many pathology companies are now going into smart reports, where almost 70-80% or 90% is self-explanatory with the help of smart reports, which gives a lot of deeper insight into all the related healthcare needs of the individual based on the testing. Also the next testing time or the interval that is required comes up as a part of these reminders and through the technology. Next. So on a broader perspective, the data, the testing, democratization helps even the marginalized individuals and even the better offs to determine their own health needs. So both individual as well as at a collective level, testing democratization is advancing equity amongst population masses, I would say, because the availability of healthcare service providers is not same across the country as compared to a class A city or a class B city. But with the help of all these enablers, and of course, not only brick and mortar model, today there are companies who have deployed phlebotomists like an Uber or an Ola service, where you can just book a test and the nearest phlebotomist comes home to collect the sample. And that's the best use you can make of the available service of collecting sample. I think that's the right thing to do. Also, the test democratization helps people to design, manage, and access their own data concerning their healthcare, food, and actionable. So even the best of treatments or consults provided by a doctor cannot help fully control, especially the non-communicable diseases, unless the individual takes charge of their own health. And it's possible only with a widespread and voluntary use of diagnostics, which is at the disposal of the individual. Democratizing diagnostics is the only way out for a large population country like ours. And it also helps bring parity amongst citizens rather than give advantage only to those who have immediate access to healthcare needs for testing or for prevention. And this can help even the medical practitioners, because when the patient comes up with a good history of healthcare records, even the doctor is in a better position to take a decision about the healthcare need of the individual and give a much better way forward for the patient. Next. So all of us know a lot of entities are available today, right from online consult, lab tests, scans, diabetes care programs, kidney care programs, health check tools, full body checks, blood pressure monitoring, weight management. And today, if you ask me, even we as an organization today are looking as a full stack healthcare service provider. Ideally, right from a doctor consult to a prescription honoring, which includes not only pathology, but also radiology and medicine. Today, most of the most felt need is that with just a single service provider in healthcare sector, you are able to access all these 3-4 elements, right from prescription generation, consult to the delivery of home collection of a sample to a home visit of a pharmacy store representative to give you the supply of the drugs. So I think that itself is the whole paraphernalia around the democratization of healthcare testing, which includes all other elements, as some of them are mentioned here, which are really now making a way for a future. And I'm sure 5 years from now or 10 years from now, the number of individuals using technology-based platforms for health services, for the testing, for the interpretation of the test results, will be far more than it is. At least a kind of a 2x, 3x kind of people will be using these services, which will really help actually democratize the testing and the preventive health segment in India. Next. So yeah, so it's, I think, the same thought again here, that today people don't have to wait for getting scans in government setups for months and for weeks. The digital connectivity of services to the healthcare platforms, whether it is at home service or at the nearby service provider, has given a lot of democratized setup already, and it's taking the next leap now. Quarterly, yearly health checkups for various service providers gives a systematic approach to preventive health, which is going to be only increasing as the adoption increases over a period of time. And I'm sure even the healthcare professionals are now accepting it as a part of their consult, that the patients will come up with data from various gadgets, will come up with their health records based on their preventive checkups, and this will help them resolve the issues much better. Next. So, good or bad, I think I have spoken a lot only in favor of good. So that's, I think, the right thing. But yes, I would say still there are certain disease areas. So I have broadly talked more about the non-communicable diseases. But yes, there are still some areas where still the role of the right diagnosis largely lies with the consultant, with the healthcare service provider. Though today even tests for breast cancer, say BRCA, is also becoming democratized and getting promoted at various levels in corporates and in many preventive checkups, right? So even to that extent, that even cancers are also coming up largely and of course with the availability of whole exome sequencing, with the availability of whole genome sequencing, I think in future when you have the entire record of your whole genome on a chip available with you, it's going to be much more democratized for the medical fraternity to take care of the health needs of the individual. Next. So this is the point I've already talked about. For our diversified country, that is the only bright spot. It's the health test democratization for preventive health, and also to take care of prevention of progression of disease in the NCD category. Next. Right. So with this, I would lay rest to my voice and thank you all for providing me this opportunity to share my thoughts, because ideally, I believe without the democratization for a vast population country like ours, governments alone or even alone the healthcare service providers will not be able to achieve the kind of targets the governments have set up for decreasing mortality and morbidity in India. Thank you very much. If there are any questions, I'm happy to answer.
Mr. Sharma, that was a brilliant, set of ideas you put out there. And, it's interesting that we started talking about the democratization of certain tests, of certain technologies, of the market as a whole. If Dr. Gupta is there, I'm sure he would have a question saying, how would we regulate it? What kind of systems would we follow? But again, that's a question for the future. That's a question for the future. What we need right now is people to come together and actually put these blocks together that, hey, this is a technology that there's a requirement in the market. And given the COVID pandemic, it has shaped our mindset. We are more open to the idea of home tests, right? Earlier, it was only pregnancy and diabetes. That's it, right? As I look in the market today, they're open to doing COVID tests at home, relaxing at home, recovering, right? So there's a big paradigm shift that's happened, and you talked about that, in fact. So more than a question,
it's extremely important, right? Obviously, regulations, as you said, sometimes in future may have to come into picture. But today, I see many individuals who have a family history of diabetes or dyslipidemia, and even those people don't go out for testing to a lab today, right? So because in spite of the fact that they know that it is running in their family, they have never bothered to get themselves tested. It's only now that post-COVID, when people have seen the impact, the impact of any disease being so drastic, that many people have started now realizing that at least some testing is better than no testing at all, whether it is at home or whether it is at the lab. So even at home, at least they are comfortable getting a self-testing kit for maybe a blood sugar, or even calling a phlebo home to at least get some testing based on, say, there are 80 parameters, 70 parameters today. There is an offering from many pathology companies. And that's where I think people are, I've seen now many new concepts. There are even now companies who are setting up their phlebos at the bus stops. While waiting for the next bus to catch, you can give you a sample in the morning when you're rushing to your office. And of course, for long, the RWA camps and the camps outside the morning, the joggers park is already happening. So all that in some sense and shape is giving a nudge to all individuals to take care of the preventive side of their health, which I would say is a good idea. At least you are able to uncover many such silent diseases, which may not have otherwise happened if the democratization is not happening and it is only dependent on a doctor prescription.
Very true, sir. In fact, I believe that we are also seeing multiple paradigm shifts happening at the same time. We've gone from taking care as a reactionary measure to preventive healthcare. Right? That's a very big shift that's happening, not just in tier 1, but also in tier 2 and tier 3 cities. Right?
Absolutely.
That is one. Second, I have seen that it's not the domain. No one person can say that this is my domain. Today, there is an option for everyone to do everything. And in fact, if I've talked to people abroad, and they have said that for all the cribs that they have about the Indian healthcare system, for all the negatives that do exist, I believe, and they said, we come to India to do our tests, right?
Absolutely. Perfect. Hang on.
They come to India to do their tests because not only is it done better, it's more cost effective, right? And these are people from first world nations, right? First world nation people are coming to India to do the tests. There may be some specific treatments that can be done abroad, but when it comes to diagnosis, I believe that today we are at the cusp of something very big. We have a very big opportunity as an industry. If we play our cards right, we go in the right way with the right amount of decentralization and democratization, as you said. India stands to become the hub of medical testing. We can for the world.
Right.
We've got the manpower, we've got the intellect. It is only a matter thinking, planning, and doing, right? So I think it's only a matter of the doing that needs to be done.
Right. Absolutely.
So,
correct.
But thank you, sir. That was very insightful. And,
Thank you so much.
This whole entire day today has been full of ups and downs, a lot of roller coasters, because a lot of ideas coming together at one time. And big thank you to Jatinji for having put this thing together along with our guides, Mr. Sehgal and Dr. Neeraj Jain. So before we end for the day, let me put it as the official vote of thanks, as they call it, right? But before the vote of thanks, sir, let me give me a minute, please. Please allow us to officially thank you for the lovely presentation and your time, sir.
Thank you.
As a guest speaker, your insights were very valuable. And, I know some of you have spoken today, but I'd love to see you here tomorrow as well, because the ideas tomorrow will, because the questions that you can ask as industry people will help the medical professionals speak tomorrow. Because like today was an industry focused agenda. Tomorrow is more in the direction of pathology. So I think there has to be a meeting of minds, a meeting of ideas, and a meeting of thoughts. That's, I think, the prime agenda behind TIDE. If you want to transform, it's not going to happen overnight. But
Right.
When people come together, they ask the right questions, right? When you ask the right questions, people start to think, and then we go in the right direction, right?
Absolutely.
So thank you so much. And let me just do the official vote of thanks. Thank you to all the attendees for joining in. It makes that effort worthwhile. Special thanks to all our speakers, Mr. Jatin Mahajan, Dr. Neeraj Jain, Mr. Raj Sehgal, Mr. Rajiv Nath, Dr. Alpana Razdan, Mr. Vishal Gandhi, Mr. Vikas Sharma, and Dr. Sandeep Gupta. We will catch all of you again tomorrow with another set of interesting debates and insights. Till then, from all of us at TIDE 2022, take care and good night. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Have a good day.